Okay, you were at 6:30.
Okay, it is 6:30. So I move that we open the Conservation Commission meeting for the town of Marshfield on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, Bert.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Lagi?
Yes.
Commissioner
Rick Carver, yes?
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Commissioner Karen?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Craig Hannafin, yes. As per usual, this will be a hybrid meeting. Zoom participation is possible. However, in the event of technical failure, we will continue live in this room. So with that, I think we can begin. And Mr. Carberry, who has been working closely with this, is going to take the ball and run with it.
Okay.
I just thought of something.
Thank you, Craig. Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're going to go through the proposed additional and further refinements to the Chapter 505 304.1 performance standards that apply to piers and docks.
You open the public hearing?
Yes.
Before we do that, I think I misstated the date when I opened the meeting. It is Thursday, April 14th. I might have said
And the meeting is
19th.
open.
The meeting is open.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. The hearing is open. Okay. So there are 31 performance standards. Not all of them are we making recommendations and having discussions and votes on changing them. I would say about a third of them we are. Some of them are very simple and straightforward. Others have involved a fair amount of discussion and some research and so forth. And we will take public comment, we will discuss, and the Conservation Commission will vote on each of these individually as we go through the evening. From a level-setting standpoint, I wanted to at least review what our goals and objectives have been for this exercise. And I think number one is to consider the adverse cumulative effects and effects to the habitats of dock construction, maintenance, and proliferation, as well as the boat traffic that goes along with that. Secondly, we want to be sure that we strike a balance between trying to allow homeowners in the town of Marshfield to use their properties and get access to the resource areas, but at the same time, treat everybody fairly and apply the regulations that we have in the state and the regulations we have in the town. Thirdly, we want to streamline these performance standards and simplify the permitting process. And fourthly, try to eliminate confusion where we can. And this process really started in 2017 when Jim Kilcoyne was the chair of the Conservation Commission. There was an effort that he undertook along with Bill and several other commissioners to begin to look at regulations and change performance standards. During that, between then and now, they did put some new regulations in effect on March 18th, 2021. Since then, we've also come up with dock checklists, thanks to the Conservation Administrator. We've institutionalized site visits for any project, where engineers, the project owner, the Conservation Commissioner, the Administrator, the Harbor Master, the North River Commission, if necessary, all convene at the site to look at staked marks for the floats, and that has gone much more smoothly since the early days. And the other thing the March 18th regulations did is they provided a little more oversight and overview for the harbor master to make sure that he was supportive of any of these projects going forward, and it didn't cause any problems or safety, navigation, those sorts of things in the river. And probably the biggest changes then were there was a harmonization that involved no piles in the river. That was kind of a staple for many years in the North River, as asked for by the North River Commission. And the intent was to try to harmonize that over the North River and South River. Okay. The other major thing that happened on March 18th, 2021 was floats were no longer allowed to sit on shoes. So you needed to have 2.5 feet of water in all four corners. at mean low water if you wanted to have a float. Those are the biggest changes. So that was the first step. Tonight we're going to take another step toward meeting these goals and objectives. And the process and the approach has been, we formed a small task force, Bill Grafton, myself, Joe Ring, another commissioner, the harbor master, Mike DeMeo, and we did recruit Dave Hill, who has come back to work at DEP and is involved with the Chapter 91 waterways, and who's very, very knowledgeable about the regulations and actually signs off on the 91 licenses and so forth. He actually came and sat in harbor master's office during one of the rounds. And we also employed Bill Finn as a consultant around language and appropriateness to make sure that the words that we were writing, since, I'm a volunteer, I'm a biochemist, I'm not an environmentalist, I'm not a harbor master, I'm a biochemist, just to make sure that we stay relevant with the words that we write. So we endeavor to go back through other towns again. We looked at North Shore towns like Newburyport, Ipswich, Essex, where they have tidal rivers and flows. I've been in that river. That's a nasty river, too. And towns on the South Shore. We looked at Barnstable again, Chatham, Duxbury, and a few other towns to kind of look for trends and what other towns were doing. Everybody's doing something different. But there were a few things that stuck out that we thought we might want to include in these regulations this time around for the town of Marshfield. And the other thing that we referred to, and for anybody that's really interested in these sorts of issues, there's a wonderful article that was written by the staff of Mass DMF, Division of Marine Fisheries, in February 2021. It's a very thorough review called A Review of Habitat Impacts from Residential Docks and Recommended Best Management Practices, with an emphasis on the northeastern United States. And it goes through a discussion of dock proliferation and the cumulative adverse effects on habitat, coastal flora and fauna, submerged vegetation like eelgrass, chronic shading of the salt marsh. It goes through a discussion on piles and how to deal with piles, how to minimize their impact. It talks about floats and minimizing float sizes and looking for very deep water, not allowing floats to be grounded, and storage of floats above the high tide line. And there's a big section on mitigation. What could you do to help the resource areas recover from the impacts of a dock construction project in the marsh? And most importantly, they also concluded by saying many towns, they recommend do a very thorough study and survey to identify the most important resource areas and map them, identify them, and then potentially create unique best management practices for those particular areas. So, for example, in Marshfield, we could take the Green Harbor Basin, and we could have a special set of best management practices and rules and regulations for that. We're not there today. That would require, some more time and study. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit of the background about what's going on. I don't think we're finished yet. I think there's some more to do. And again, there are some easy ones to talk about, which will have probably very little discussion, and there's some more controversial ones that we'll take public comment and we'll discuss and vote on. So.
Before we go any further, I'm going to read the legal ad.
Okay.
This has been advertised 3 times, on March 30th, on April 6th, and on April 13th. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Thursday, April 14th, 2022, to consider and discuss the Chapter 505 Draft Marshfield Wetlands Protection Regulations revisions, receive public comments, approve revisions, adopt the draft, and close or continue the public hearing filed by the Marshfield Conservation Commission.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Okay, so we're going to start with E, performance standards, under proposed, and performance standard number 1. And we had a fair number of cooks working on writing this language, and we did have some late-breaking revisions that didn't make it into the copy before these got filed. So we're going to have to do some editing kind of on the fly here, and especially on Performance Standard E1.
Okay, and we're getting there right now, Rick, momentarily. Okay, I'm on it, so I'm gonna do chief.
We've also included comments that we've gotten from the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, and floodplain administrator, Andrew. On a couple of these items, Joe Rossi issued some comments to us, Joe Peskovich. And I think Greg Guillemot made some comments as well. Okay?
Okay, I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna see about zooming this a little bit. Zoom my room out here.
All right. I think because we want to stay true to Conservation Commission jurisdiction, the first paragraph up there that was essentially approved a year ago in March is something that we recommended we totally strike from this recommendation. That has to do with current zoning regulations in the town of Marshfield. And as Andrew Stewart points out, that's really not a Concom sort of issue, and I think we would prefer, with Bill Finn's counsel, to let, not deal with Marshfield zoning in the Conservation Commission. So,
We're gonna strike some stuff. All right, just for the public, just so you know, anything in black is the original text. Anything that's struck out is being dropped. Anything that's in red bold is being added. And there are 2 clerical items on E21 that I highlighted in yellow, just so we are transparent with everybody. Tell me what you want to do.
yeah, so that first paragraph would be stricken or strucken.
Struck out, okay. So I'm going to do this. I think Bob would appreciate that. It's gone, Bob. See that? Is that adequate, Bob?
Yes, and then the second sentence and the third sentence are new.
Yep.
Those would stay as they are. No more than 1 pier shall be permitted to be constructed in any property or parcel of land zoned as residential. And then, secondly, no dock or pier shall extend further from the shore or bank than a point equal to 1/2 of the lot's frontage measured as a straight line between the lot's waterfront corners. So that means if you have a 25-foot frontage, you can have a 12.5-foot extension from the shore going out. We don't want people building a 1,000-foot pier when they only have a 10-foot lot.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Not yet.
Well,
Not yet.
Not yet.
What they're going to do on each item is they're going to go through them, do the edits. They'll ask the commissioners, and then they'll ask the public.
Yeah, so
And then they'll deal with each one.
that
on a vote.
particular item was a very popular regulation in many of the towns, North Shore and South Shore, town bylaws that I reviewed. The last item on this, we're gonna,
Question, Rick, on
Yeah.
the second one? What is the definition of shore? Do we have that anywhere?
to my view, it's the river bank. Not at low tide, but at high tide.
It would be the mean high water mark.
Mean high water,
water mark?
not spring tide.
No.
Okay. Mr. Finn, we talked about that a little bit. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Should we amend that to mean high water so that
You don't have this thing?
it's clear?
Yes.
Let me see it. I think you're on the, hold on.
And, like,
Bill, we want to amend second sentence, shore, mean high water mark.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, you should have it. You got a black and white one, I don't know why. It's all right here in black, because I got printed out in black. Take my copy if you want.
That's fine.
You could take my copy, yeah. Here, take this copy.
You good, Mike?
It's gonna, I think it should have color, Mike. Here, take this. Take that copy. Give me that copy. All right, bye. Thanks, sorry about that. I'm now ready for you, Mr. Carberry.
Mine was all black and white. I couldn't see the change.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us the harbor master's colorblind.
No, I'm not.
I'm ready. Where do you
So
want
after shore, in the second sentence,
me? Right here, sure.
in parentheses, mean high water,
Second, okay, mean,
right there.
okay, and then in parentheses, mean high water.
Good catch, Bert.
Okay, that's an add. All right, very good.
Should be the mean, Bill, it should be the mean high water mark.
Mark.
Understood. It's now that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Attorney Galvin.
Welcome.
Glad you're paying attention as usual. All right, third paragraph is also going to need some rewrite because the rewriting we didn't make it into the final version. However, the first part of the sentence up till the colon, 2 sentences is fine. So all floats, including vessels, shall maintain a 4-to-1 setback from established navigation channels and anchorage. I can't read it, Bill.
Okay, so I'm trying to get it to be, I'm having a little
So as
trouble.
not to cause a hazard or impede navigation. The 4-to-1 setback formula is as follows.
I'm making it larger for you. All right, bear with me.
And
Okay.
the rewrite,
That should take care of
and the
it.
reason we're rewriting it is just to make it clear. So the rewrite is going to be the outermost portion of a dock, pilings, and vessel shall
Okay.
be a minimum of 4 times the water depth at mean low water of the navigable channel taken from the channel's edge.
Got it. So this is going out right here, all of it, right? Everything
Yes.
goes away. One more time.
So from the colon,
Yep.
the outermost portion of a dock, pilings, and vessel
Got
shall
it.
be a minimum of 4 times the water depth, in parentheses, mean low water, of the navigable channel from a point, at a point from the channel's edge.
Okay, I got part of that. So the outermost portion of a dock, pilings, and vessel shall be a minimum of 4 times. Okay, we got to there.
Shall be a minimum of 4 times the water depth,
Slowly. Okay.
and then in parentheses, mean low water,
Mean low water mark or mean low water?
water mark
Okay, I'm looking for Bob to weigh in on that. Okay, go ahead.
of the navigable channel
A navigable channel
from the channel's edge.
from the channel's edge.
So,
Okay.
from a standpoint of not impeding navigation in any channels, the harbor master feels that we need a 4-to-1 setback. So if there's 10 feet of water in the channel, you got to come 40 feet, 4x. Okay? So that means, is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, but you have to have measured at approximately 0 tide. If
Okay.
you go there on a plus tide and it looks like more water than there
He's
actually
right-
is.
Okay.
And
Where does that fit
that's
in, Mike?
standard we do, every dock project that we walk is
0 tide.
and that benefits the homeowner as well, the applicants as well.
Do I put
Let's
it,
change that to,
at,
That was already in there, like.
yeah, I saw it. I can
4
put it
times
back.
ago.
At, we had that at the very on, we had that at the end, mean low water measured or okay, so mean low water mark, measured, right here, watch this, measured
at 0.00 tide.
at approximately, because it isn't perfect.
No,
We do our best, and we have to be flexible. Approximately 0.00 tide. Is that gonna work?
Yeah.
and it's fair for everyone, because if you went there on a negative tide, you would have a lot less water than what you would normally have on a 0
Yeah.
tide, so.
Yeah.
The 0 makes it fair for the applicant as well.
Right. And it's hard to get a zero, because they don't always come up each
Close
month.
to it, but
I said approximately,
kind of goes
so.
on a negative 2-foot tide.
Can I make a suggestion? It's
Yes.
Bob Galvin.
Yes,
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
The sentence as it's worded doesn't make enough sense to me. It should say, the outermost portion of a dock, pilings, and vessel shall be a minimum of 4 times the water depths measured at the mean low water mark.
okay.
Measured at the mean low water mark, and then in parentheses, at the 0 tide.
Okay.
So there's 2 sets.
Take the other parentheses off. The one that's after
Follow-
depth.
Yeah, got it. I'm with you. Right here.
Depth should be singular, depth,
Depth,
singular.
singular, got it.
So is this all depth?
Measured at the mean low water mark,
Water depth
Yeah.
times 4.
and then take the other measured out.
I see it, I got it. All right,
Is
That-
at the, I
makes
actually
sense.
think it should be just at the 0, 0 tide,
so,
not the approximate. I mean, yeah, we all know as a practical matter, it's gonna be approximately, because the moment of 0, 0 tide is a moment.
Right.
It's a second. So it should be at the tide, at the 0, 0 tide.
Okay.
okay, and then we, for the record, Bob, we have flexibility on that because we know that we don't really hit a 0, 0 tide too often. It's pretty rare.
Right.
Okay, so we have flexibility for
It's
the
a
record.
complicated sentence, but it's a simple concept. You got 8 feet of water
Yeah,
in the navigable channel at 0, 0 tide, times 4,
32.
32 feet. So that means the outward side of your boat or float needs to be 34 feet away. That's just so we don't have floats and boats too close to the channel or boats swinging like in the Green Harbor and that sort of thing. So it's a matter of safety and navigation, per the harbor master's
Okay.
jurisdiction. Okay, commissioners,
Go for it.
discussion,
I'm good.
questions? Bert?
No, deeper water, more setback, because you got bigger boats, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, anybody from the public have a comment, question?
What's your name for the record?
James Summers?
I'm good with it, John Cusick.
Okay, thanks,
Okay,
John.
hold on, John Cusick, what's your address, please? Sorry.
I don't have to provide my address.
Yes, it's typical it is, John, come on.
Yeah,
Waterman,
No, I'm not providing my address.
Waterman Avenue. All right, Bob, guidance on that later. So go ahead, sir. Your name is James
Summers,
Summers, thanks for your, SUMM?
ERS, correct.
Okay, hello, Joe. And you're at what address?
1309
Yeah.
Union Street.
Got it. All right, very good, sir.
Go ahead.
So the question is, I'm just thinking about the river out near where we are, and the depth it would be, at that 0, 0, is that near like a mean low water? Just, I'm not familiar with the
Yeah,
0,
so it'd basically be a flat level, a flat run out tide.
Okay. So I'm thinking about the depths there. I would think that most of the docks that are already there would be out of conformance. I mean, it's,
There's a lot of docks in town that sit on the mud, that got permitted years ago.
It's off, yeah.
the navigable channel, like there north of the Bridge Street, Union Street bridge, what's the width of the channel at that point? Or-
Union Street,
Hmm.
up past Union Street, a lot of that area is not really impacted by this because there's a lot of water up there. The channel's over, some parts 50 feet wide. There's not a lot of shoals up there, so that part of the town really is not really impacted by that.
Yeah.
It's pretty, they usually have pretty deep water up there.
Um,
I don't think there's been any projects in the North River that far up that have been denied for water depth. They've all had plenty of water that are up there.
Yeah, all the docks that have been reviewed and permitted since I've been here for 3 years in the North River have
Oh,
all
well,
been
inside
approved
those kind of
because
ratios.
you don't have to go very far from the shore
It gets
before
deep quickly.
it gets deep really quick.
I don't spend much time down there. So.
It's okay. It's beautiful. You should spend it. I'll take you for a ride up there, Mr. Summers.
Where's your address?
1309. So it's
Union?
Union,
Okay.
yeah, just the hook after you go north of the bridge.
It's up in Rocky Reach.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Lisa Messersmith. I live at 1309 Union Street.
Okay, Lisa, gotcha, thank you.
I have first of all, I want to say, I think the commission's done an amazing job on this, and I think it's terrific that these, that the aim is to protect the river and the habitats of the wildlife. My question is about the first point, which is no more than one pier shall be permitted to be constructed on any property or parcel of land zoned as residential. In 1980, my mother, who was the owner of our property then, gave a license to a family that had an easement over our property to the river. She granted a license for them to put a dock If this goes into effect, we would, if I wanted to put a dock on my property, I have about 700 feet of frontage on the river. If I wanted to put a dock on the property, I wouldn't, seems like I would not be able to, or I would need to ask for a variance?
Further.
Or are there any
grandfather.
other ways that?
So you're talking about a separate dock that you would pay for, you would permit.
Yes, correct,
You would put it
separately
in that
from the
land.
one that was constructed by our neighbor who owns that dock
Right.
on an easement on my property. So
When was that
that was in 1980.
Attorney Galvin, that was a question.
Bob, can you help us?
Bob, you want to take a crack at that one?
I have to make a disclosure. I've been involved in some litigation that involved Dr. Messerschmidt, so I don't want to give you an opinion that without disclosing that. And Dr. Messerschmidt's question, I think, is a very fair question, notwithstanding the fact that we've had unrelated to any town matters litigation. This circumstance is probably not uncommon. It may not be occurring in 100 locations, but it certainly is occurring in her circumstance. And she has a extraordinary large amount of frontage along the North River, and read literally, she would require a waiver of this regulation in order to build her own dock, which is something that the commission is empowered to approve, provided it's in the public interest and won't substantially derogate from the intent of the regulations. So the answer, I think, to Dr. Messerschmidt is that absolutely, positively, it would require a waiver. It's not a variance, it's a waiver of a regulation, which the commission can grant. So that begs the question, should the commission also give someone the ability to construct a dock if they have lawful access along the river, because that's the way around that.
Yeah, well, I think this evening, we can't have a public hearing on an application for that, but in the case that were to be put forward, you know, you've got a huge amount of frontage on the river. And, you know, I would like to think that to try to help homeowners out and allow people to take advantage of their property and their access to the resource areas. It's not like you don't have room to do this, right?
It would have a real impact on the value of my property,
Yeah.
the ability to build a dock. So that's why I'm bringing it to the attention here. And I just have
I
one.
mean, you realize tonight we can't
no, I
we can't
understand
tell
that.
you yay or nay.
No, I just wanted to put it out there
Yeah.
as a situation such as this.
Yeah.
May I ask one
Certainly.
more question? On the first point that you struck, is that in the zoning bylaws of the town, that particular, I'm just curious why it was struck, if it's a zoning issue. Is the
I
zoning
can
board-
answer that.
Go ahead, Bob.
A dock would be an accessory structure, and an accessory structure always has to be on the same lot as the principal use. So it is duplicative for it to appear here.
Thank you.
Okay. We good? Okay.
I just had a solution. I mean, yeah, you need the waiver or a variance. Bob was saying the waiver, but you could also parcelize the land, and then you wouldn't have that issue any longer. So that's another option. So there's other possibilities. I'm not saying do that, but it exists.
Go ahead, Mike.
They could also appeal to DEP as well, or to state waterways. Technically, they could. That's their option.
Oh. Okay.
700 feet of frontage with 2 docks in the North River. I probably won't have a problem with that. It meets all the requirements.
Yeah.
Rick, my last comments would be, we're trying to get this for the majority of the docks, and I think it's gonna be a perfect fit, so that's why there's waivers, there's variances and other appeals processes. So even a denial, they can appeal it, you know?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think I'll make a motion that we move. Oh,
Joe Pesovich, can you get your address, please, sir?
Joe Pasevich, 25 Wilson Road.
Thank you, sir.
On the second amended section there, you refer to the lot's waterfront corners. I'm just, it occurs to me, what if there is not a straight line boundary on the waterfront side of the lot? What if it's convex or concave? And if that's the case, where would that distance, outward distance be measured from?
Probably we would parallel the resource area of the river, right? So we would start at each corner of the property and draw a straight line parallel to the river, and that would be the measurement.
And it would be perpendicular to that line that you would measure the distance out?
I believe so, yeah.
Again, I'm saying if a lot has got a uneven or a curved boundary to it,
Yeah, I think we draw a straight perpendicular line to the river,
yeah.
to each corner, and that would be the measurement.
The average. Seeing the average is what he's saying.
I don't think we would trace all the nooks and crannies and squiggles and things.
And as long as you meet the minimum depth requirement for a float placement.
Right. Any more questions, comments from the public? Okay, then I make a motion that we close on E1. Do I have a second? Thank
Second.
you, Craig. We'll do a roll call vote. Art?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And Rick, yes. Okay, so that one carries. That was one of the more difficult ones, so.
So second was on who?
What's that?
Second was who again?
Me,
Craig.
Craig.
Thank you, Craig. All right, so that was a 500. Okay,
Okay,
so number 4, let me.
so there's no change in item 2, there's no change in item 3,
There we go, here's one, 4.
but item 4, we've made some changes.
Again, the red is additions.
Red is the
Strike
new
it.
language and additions, and the struck in black is what we're replacing. So the intent of number 4 is essentially to encourage people to share docks because it's better for the resource areas in general. Less construction, less disruption of the marsh. But in the cases where it does require issues with properties and easements to make that possible, we want those recorded with the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. And we still want to make sure that the dock or float square footage stays the same at 200 square feet. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't have a 10 by 20 or an 8 by whatever that other dimension is, if you want to accommodate a couple boats. But typically, you're not going to put a 400 or 500 square foot dock or a marina in that case. You know, if 2 people are going to share a dock, there are ways that you could configure that float to put a couple reasonable sized vessels on. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns?
We're good with that one?
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Comments from the public? Questions from the public? Anyone?
Rick, I guess folks on the Zoom and here should know that there are docks in Marshfield that this does currently exist. But there are shared docks that lessen the impacts of the more docks that are shared docks.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Mike, for that point. Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to adopt the new language in performance standard number 4. Do I have a second?
Second.
Art.
Thank you, Art. Roll call vote. Art?
Yes.
Craig Hannafin,
Yes.
yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carberry, yes.
500, okay.
So that
Thank you to everybody participating. Okay, next one is E8, so I'll scoot down to that. No, nothing on 5, nothing on 6, nothing on 7. Here, 8 has some red, okay.
8 is just the addition of the word residential lots. To make that more specific. Commissioners, any questions, comments?
Nope.
Public, comments, questions? Okay, I make a motion that we accept the addition of the single word and performance standard number 8. Do I have a second?
Second.
Craig?
Greg? Art?
Art Laggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Thank you. Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carber, yes.
It's a 5-0. Okay, great. Moving right along. All right, 9, excuse me, 9 is nothing there.
Nothing
10.
at 9.
Okay, 10 has a strike. We're taking out storage of floats or other seasonal pier materials and boats shall not be allowed on marshes, dunes, or coastal beaches. And then we had the new language in red.
So we're going to have some discussion with item number 10. For decades in the town of Marshfield, in Situate and Norwell, and in many other towns around Massachusetts, there are numerous seasonal floats that sit in the mud, sit in the marshes in the off-season. And this has been an ongoing problem for a long, long time. Sometimes in storms they break free and they float up and down the river. They create damage, they break up. We find wooden pieces. I've found wooden pieces in my front yard. One time I found a toolbox attached to a dock in my front yard with about $200 worth of tools in it and no name on it, so I kept it. But this has been a problem that we've been seeking a solution for a long, long time in town. Primarily because there's concern about, damage to the marsh. So there are no other towns that I found in the state of Massachusetts that have a solution for this in their bylaws today that I was able to identify. So the idea we had is, could we at least put some description, some instruction with some seasonality around how we potentially allow people to do this. And I think a lot of people try to do this anyway. If you have a float on the marsh, there are several companies that work on the rivers and do dock projects and do maintenance that on the king tides, on the super high tides, new moon tides, will take those floats and drive them all the way up on the marsh as far as they can above the high tide mark during the dormant period of the marsh, which is typically after November 1st, and tie them down, lash them down to try to secure them so they don't go anywhere, and then they reverse the process in the spring. Now, not everybody does that. A lot of people try to do that, but not everybody does that.
Could you silence that mic? Thank you. Bethanis, please.
So the idea here is to define the seasonality time window, November 1 to April 15th, during a dormant period of the marsh where we allow people to put these floats, because there's no other place to put them, folks, as high up as they can on the above the high tide mark. And I think Bill has got some data that he wants to share with people here this evening on some of the results that we've gotten with some projects and things in town that affect floats in the marsh.
Bear with me. I'm a little slow on this uptake here. Okay. Where is it hiding? Okay, bear with me. I want that to open up. There's that. Okay. All right, so I put together a PowerPoint to do this quickly. We have a lot of experience with a variety of salt marsh projects. So the main thing from a conservation perspective would be the resiliency and the performance standards being met, 310 CMR 10.32, and our own Chapter 505, which is pretty much a model after that. So salt marsh is resilient, important resource area. I'm going to go to see if I can go to the next slide. It got to be.
Speak up, Bill.
Can you hear me okay? We had a project out at Maycomer's Ridge. The English Marsh is on one side, and on the other side you had the Marine Biological Lab owns a large section of marsh, which is getting impacted. There was a need for an emergency certification to replace 20 telephone poles, primarily in the salt marsh, and you can get an idea that we had hefty equipment out there. We had cherry pickers. Bottom picture shows you 4 actively working and 1 in the waiting in the back. And then we had a huge telephone pole here. We're about to go in and be driven by that pile driver right there. Those mats you're seeing float. They worked with special providers in order to arrange for this, and I can report that the results were that we had 3 poles here, for example, and we had the mats removed, and I walked this and there was 0 damage. The areas around the telephone pole, I had them try to put back the salt marsh into the piece that they had taken out, which is what we do whenever we put up a osprey stand, and it tends to work. The grass tends to grow back. It's very resilient. So there were no signs of salt marsh. Oops. And then we had this picture here showing the overall range here. I mean, it was a large-scale project, and when the people were done from Verizon and EverSource, they wrote letters to some of the other sponsors in the neighborhood, and they said this is one for the ages. So, taking the right precautions and thinking it through. Conservation was there in 2017, protecting your salt marsh here, not a blade of grass damaged. So we do the right thing. We recently had a site visit on the North River, displaying that, a winter float location, up gradient of mean high water. So where I'm hovering right here, that shadowy area, there's lines coming out, which will show you more clearly. The mean high water is marked way down here with special signage. So this guy is way above the mean high water. So that being said, this is what you had for damage. Nada, nothing. Here are your lines. This is the winter storage. This makes the case that this is actually a workable option. We also had comments from Dave Hill while he was with us on the 3rd meeting. He read this E10 that we originally had, and he said, I'm really glad to see that we've got some practical language getting into the regulations, because he's seen himself with all his experience that there is no impact, because when you're above the mean high water, you've got spring elevations and you've got periodic tides, which will lift the float occasionally during any given month off the marsh. Again, the marsh is dormant. We do osprey stands also during the dormant period, typically November through April, in order to make sure that it's limited damage and that the salt marsh is resilient. Last thing, now this is an issue. This was a boat fire. Private boat was burning at the Green Harbor Marina. Harbor master and the police helped put it out with the support of fire department and other essential forces. 1,000 square feet of the Green Harbor Marsh were damaged by this, according to the Mass DEP Immediate Response Action Plan. I was notified of it. I stayed in touch with the LSP. So what ended up happening was the LSP said, look, we got 500 square feet fixed, but he still had some damage. These were damaged areas. I said, you're going to give us 100%. This is Marshfield. So we gave him an enforcement order, and he got working on it, and voila, they planted the plugs, and we then had 100%. They came and they did a presentation. The company was Ecotech, working with the LSP. Vineyard was the company's LSP. We had a 100% success rate here. They did a presentation. Go check the minutes, 12/3/2019. So with that in mind, that's all I have to say on that. And I'll stop the share. But I just wanted to kind of point those things out to keep this simple, that it's factual data, and there you go. I mean, come on, we do the job. If there's damage, then somebody's going to do restoration. We don't play games with salt marsh.
I mean, this seemed to us to be a reasonable solution, for a better solution than what we have today, where there's no definition, no instruction on what people should do. Obviously, we don't really want floats on the marsh to begin with, but there's no place to put them. So if the instruction is king tides, drive them as far up as you can, you'll have to hire one of the contractors to do that. They're able to do that. They know how to do that. We did get some comments from Joe Rossi and some suggestions from the building commissioner that there's no instructions on how to attach and secure the floats in the dormant season. And I think we have some work to do to define a way, some instructions on how best to do that. And
Correct.
I don't know where we keep that information, Bill?
Well, we could actually, Rick, to your point, we could factor that into the policy and procedure guide. That way, if it's not working, whatever we've come up with, we have here anchoring and securing was the language that we'd factored in. We don't say specifically how to do that, but like anything, over time, things change. Andrew and I talked, Jim Folker and I talked, diamond piers became an option that we all really agreed were a great solution. That's a construction thing. So the securing the anchoring might follow the same pathway. For now, what I just saw as an example, that was working. What's not working is when you tie it up and you leave it there year round and you get death and dying of the salt marsh. We have a guy on Marginal right now, and he's looking into getting a certificate of compliance that's not addressed his salt marsh restoration. I have to have a chat with him. So he's going to do that later. So again, we're protecting it. If it's secured permanently, that's a problem. It's only seasonally, and it's got to be done in a way that doesn't cause additional damage to the salt marsh.
And the last
Also,
thing,
I think from Joe's point, probably maybe even Andrew, they're worried about flotsam. We've seen that. There was a project I got a complaint on, and some of the material was not hauled off every day and it ended up at the river. In fact, we bumped into it with the North and South River Watershed Association pontoon. So that's a real factor, but any marine debris can get out there. So securing these properly so that they don't become flotsam is important. I think having the decal that Mike or the reflective marking that Mike had introduced was a brilliant solution. Now, if something like this happens, great. Let's have multiple town agencies go and have fines so they don't do that again. So that's an option we can pursue then. We don't want to give fines, but if they don't follow the game plan that we have in the policy procedure guide, then of course you would have the potential that.
and I think the last point of significance for me was when I think Dave Hill was from DEP visited our meeting and was supportive of doing this, saying that this is probably the best case scenario we can have without space to store floats in the off season.
It also separates out those which are, all year round putting their float out, and they're neglectful. They just aren't taking care of it. That's a real issue. Or somebody that's below the mean high water. Now we can visit them and say, look, you got to move it up, or you're going to have to get it off-site, one of the two. So we have something real that we can actually follow up on. Right now, you could go up and down the river, and there may be a violation. If I hit one person, I got to get them all. That's the way it is. Otherwise, you're capricious and arbitrary or selective or perceived that way. Either way, you've got to be careful. So this allows us to actually regulate better those who are not going to comply with this. And this is the best case scenario. Sorry to take up so much time.
Okay.
I got a couple points, Rick.
Go ahead.
I took a look at the wetland changes, GIS for 2019, and took a count of the number of docks in Marshfield, private docks and floats. I got 70. Of those, 30 are above the 3A bridge. And the vast majority of those in the off-season are stored on the marsh. That GIS, it doesn't give the date, but from the appearance, it was probably either mid-spring or mid-fall, because it's a combination of summer in and summer out. But particularly those 30 floats above the 3A bridge, where they would be stored, if they weren't stored on site, they'd have to be moved to an off-site location. The only places I know that store floats, they're all in the flood zone. Joe Rossi's comment about storing them outside of the flood zone, I don't think that's an option. As you said before, there's no space, and the space that is available is all in the flood zone.
To Bert's point, I mean, there's off, Duxbury, there is a place where they actually have the lobster traps. That's a long drive for the lobstermen, but it gives them a place to put their gear, but it's totally out of the floodplain. So that would mean you might have to drive an extended period of distance, and that changes the whole equation dramatically. So to Bert's point, to get out of the floodplain completely, you might have to drive away.
Well, and with the size of the floats, it's pretty difficult to move them over the road.
Close the road down, it gets a little ridiculous.
So I think the vast majority of them would wind up being stored in a flood zone, and particularly the ones that are in the upper North River, they get stored at a place that's probably more dangerous than where they are now.
Good observation, Bert. Hadn't thought about that.
I support this.
Thanks for spending the time to do that research, Bert.
And beyond that, I think Bill's presentation about the damage to the marsh, I think that addresses a lot of the concerns that people have had, and they're good concerns. But I think that gives the answer.
Yeah. Who would be the team of people we would consult with to come up with suggestions in terms of securing floats in the off-season?
I think we can expand on that and have a bigger team, you know what I mean, if you want. It could be the four of us again with Joe and you and I and Mike, and we could add in Bert and maybe Bill Finn. We could
Okay.
beat the heck out of the policy, and, you know, we could get some legs on that one, I would think, you know.
Okay.
Or you want to be in on that too?
I'm sorry?
You want to be in on that too?
No, I just had one comment.
Yeah.
So I would just like to see some verbiage in here on giving some guidance or direction to get the floats up to where we want it without damaging the marsh and dragging it across.
Okay.
So it's in the high, a very high tide situation to get it up and to get it back.
So we have in the special conditions, on every single order of conditions, no dragging across the float, or across the marsh. That came from like a 93 ZBA decision on a property in Bartlett's. So I had spotted that language, and we were looking for something back then in 2018, I think it was, and we started using that language. So to your point, every order of conditions with docks carries that as a bare minimum. So we're evolving here in a regulation, so this makes it more clear, but those special conditions also provide what you're talking about as well. So we wouldn't need to change this anymore for that reason.
They're good?
Not sure. I really wanted to see something in here.
I mean, something
One
prescriptive
sentence.
about one
Yeah.
sentence?
Yeah.
It says-
We could put a sentence in.
Not saying exactly how it is, but
It says it right here, Art. It says dragging of floats or other
Oh, I
associated.
see that.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So
Should the sentence
intuitively,
be this?
somebody would say
This should be timed during new moon or
something like that.
or king tides.
King Tom, well, yeah.
We,
there's
we
no-
already got the dates. We worked with the harbor master to think about this and delivery. And the spring tide elevation is when you want to do this. And Mike brought that up. We expanded from November 15, April 1 to November 1, April 15 to catch those spring tide elevations, to give the maximum capacity to reach that. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. It's no lift different than the zero tide that we were talking about before. You know, it's not going to ever be hit 100%.
What about at the beginning of dragging of the sentence dragging of floats? You just specified extreme high tides will be
You're
utilized
going to float them there.
to move the floats, or
What about after vegetation is prohibited? What if we said best practice is to float, use a king tide to float,
That's fine.
Too
float
prescriptive, personally.
put the float up above the high tide mark. What's wrong with that?
It's great, but I would do it in the policy and procedure guide, that it's referenced in the regs, and then we're done with this. This is a good reg here. I kind of wish we,
What do you think, Bill?
I think you should address it. I agree with that, but I think it should be addressed in the policy and procedures manual. So when somebody comes in and they have a special situation that you never thought of before, and you can use that as a guide. And I think trying to be specific in the regulation itself may tighten you down too tightly. I believe that.
Is there a downside to put it in both places?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it in both places. I don't see the need for that. I think if you give people guidance, that's all people are looking for, is some guidance, and I agree
That's
with
what-
that.
they are checking in.
That was
To
my
Bill's point,
comment, that this would be guidance.
So policy and
I think you
procedure
give the
guide.
guidance in the policy and procedures manual.
Agreed.
And in the order of conditions or
Special
whatever.
conditions, yep. Double down there, Bart, or it works a lot better. If you're too prescriptive in the regulations, there's no room for interpretation, and we've seen lately what that's done with lack of interpretation. You've got to have some flexibility on the interpretation.
However, let me, I don't want to argue this, I really don't, but how else would you get the float up to where we want it without floating it in there? You can't drive down there and do it, you destroy the marsh, you can't drag it over the marsh.
Well, that's
So-
the key. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the key is that no dragging.
Right.
So, I mean, you might float it in stages. You know, you might spend a day getting things disconnected and get it up on the high tide one day, and then, you know, when you get your moon tides, the next day or the next several
Right,
days,
right.
get it up all the way. So, it's like to be limited to one date or anything.
No, I wasn't suggesting that.
Why not just say something, use of high tide cycles to float structure up above the high tide mark is recommended.
I think this is a great conversation, and again, I think this goes in the policy and procedure guide. Otherwise, it's your staff here, we're gonna be coming to you with a lot of phone calls. You know that thing we put in there? What does it really mean, and it's gonna come up that way. It's gonna be difficult. The policy procedure guide, we could change at any given meeting without advertising, without involving a big group like this. I would say that save it for the policy and procedure guide. I am 100% with Mr. Finn. I'm not gonna say any more on it.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Mike?
So all good points with Bart and Art as well. So there's only like a few people that really move their own floats for the most part. They're contracted out by insured people. They're not really dragging floats across the marsh because the floats are heavy, they can't move. A lot of them have gangways on them, and they're secured pretty heavily. It's not a huge problem where docks are breaking off on storms. They're up pretty high, they're tied down pretty well, so it's not like an issue every nor'easter we're chasing floats. It's not, it happens occasionally, but not a lot. So, but one thing too is like, case in point for April tides, the moon tides start next Tuesday, Wednesday. So the April 15th, so they would be out of luck. The float would be stuck there, so I think you gotta extend that to May 1st to give people more time to move things around, because occasionally you do get a nor'easter in April. And I deal, a lot of the mooring guys, and a lot of March and April is dedicated to moving docks off the marshes, and they only have a few days to really do that, to pull them off, to get them out into the water, and then go back and reattach. So, like I said, it's never been a huge issue. I don't think I've logged any complaints of people dragging docks across the marsh. I mean, these are pretty big structures and a lot of money that people invested in, so it's, you know, it's not like you're not taking it serious and just leaving it out there, so.
So
Quarter point to Mark,
Yeah,
you're good.
that's a
I
good
mean,
point.
I mean, if you really wanted to dive into the weeds and really have Bill add more to his workload, you could have the homeowner email or call Bill and the dock's put in the marsh and the dock's off the marsh. I mean, I think that's a little ridiculous. Like I said, I don't think it's a huge problem. It's great that we're addressing it. Dave Hill was happy with it, but I'm happy with everything in red here except extend to May 1st. That's my
Yeah, I
recommendation.
agree, that makes a lot more sense.
Just for the public so they get it, so that's Maycomer's Ridge project was supposed to go in the dormant season. They didn't get their permits, they were delayed 2 weeks, and they basically started late April, I believe, or early May, and they didn't damage a blade of grass. I'm not saying don't protect the marsh, please don't get that message, but the project was late April, I believe, to early part of May. I'd check my records, I'm pretty certain I'm right.
So I think we want to extend it per Mike's recommendation to May 1st.
Right, or end of April, April 30th.
What I mean, but that gives
I
you
think that he's right.
a couple of
Yeah.
years.
I
He
would,
is.
why don't we just do April 30th so we aren't
No,
opening?
I want May 1st.
Okay, you're getting May 1st then. So let's go back and get May 1st.
Look,
All right, now it's time to, no more discussion from the commissioners? Susan, you good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
I like it.
All right, comments from the public. Mr. Pasevich.
Yes, Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. To what Mr. DeMayo alluded to and what Bert alluded to, how many floats are actually now being stored on land by the docks, and how many are actually being pulled and placed in a marina? Does anybody know? You say there's 70 total, but of that, do we know how many are currently being pulled and stored on land, like in a marina or something?
I don't think we know that.
We don't have an inventory of
I
that.
couldn't get that from the quick count I did, Joe.
Pardon?
I couldn't get that from the quick count I did. I just looked at the GIS and saw where they
Yeah,
were.
yeah,
You know,
okay.
I'd say the majority of them are stored on the marsh, particularly in the North River.
So, can I just,
I was thinking that, given the size of some of these floats and be a classist type comment, but if people can afford these docks and these boats, I would think most of them can probably afford to pull these floating docks and store them on land. The total square footage of the docks you're talking about is like a large parking lot probably where you could store them. One thing I'm concerned about is that the move is, at the very minimum, I agree with Mr. Lark, at the very, very minimum, there should be language in that section 10, that paragraph 10, that says, where feasible and in accordance with the procedures, at the very minimum, so nobody can complain or claim ignorance about the need to do it only when it's feasible. You may have specific conditions on a site where you just can't do that. And what bothers me also is that the moves could be done in steps, which seems to defeat the purpose of this section, this paragraph. You pull it up a little bit one day, let it set, damage something, then you pull it up another day.
Not if the moves are done, Joe, during the dormant period, which is what the seasonality is all
Yeah,
about.
right, but still, there's potential that, you know, things could go wrong, you know. No one's gonna guarantee that during these especially high tides that you're gonna have a contractor available, that the weather conditions are otherwise gonna be favorable for it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, so this is a good reason not to allow this.
Do you think this is better for regulations than what we had before, which was 0?
No, I just think it needs to be clarified, at the very minimum, saying where feasible and in accordance with procedures. At the very minimum, that should be added in there.
The contractors, I will just note, are way out in front of this.
Yeah, but it needs to be in the regulation. We can say, yeah, we have competent carpenters and painters.
We're gonna put it-
too, you know, I mean, and
we prefer to put it
electricians,
in the
but they still
guidelines.
have a code to go by, you know. So the other thing what concerns me is, how do you ensure that where the float is ultimately parked is really appropriate and safe? Because delicate and sensitive wetland areas are not solely dependent on mean high water.
So this is based on above the mean high water line.
Right.
And if it's not, and there are those who have not got it above the mean high water line, then we're gonna be having a nice conversation with them to start it off. That's what's gonna happen. I don't want that to happen, but that's what's gonna happen.
But I mean, there are other things besides the salt marsh that
Oh,
could
agreed.
be damaged.
So he has a
I
point.
mean, there are areas contiguous in the buffer zones, for example.
So he's
that
talking
should
about
not
like
be
South
used.
River, sorry, Joe, I know what you mean. So I'm just saying, South River's got variety of different types of vegetation. Here, we're addressing primarily only this vegetation. I think later in one of the regulations, we had addressed all the vegetation if it's damaged. This was more about the seasonality of the float, and that's what it's here. We actually have one coming up, to your point, that tackles like the coastal bank, you know, your high tide bush, your, you know, your even American beach grass over on Preston Terrace near, you know, like that recent one we had, I think it's Murphy. So there's a variety of vegetations that are addressed elsewhere in these regulations that are getting changed or revised, and it really maybe doesn't fit right here. So if you were to pull a float and put it on the vegetation, say in the Preston Terrace area, that's a high velocity area, that won't be too wise. It could become floatsome, but they could put it theoretically up on the coastal bank that's there and the vegetation that's there. In the dormant stage, it might last, but it may or may not get lifted, so I don't know if that doesn't fit this, you know. I think we've captured it elsewhere, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Well, there should be some cross-reference to that then, and I don't know what section you're planning on amending where that gets.
We have a mitigation section where some of that gets covered.
It's E15, Joe. We have a brand new language.
Yeah, we have a whole new edition on mitigation.
Mitigation.
Mitigation to the resource areas involved with construction of docks and piers and any damage that's done with floats.
So who's gonna chase down and require mitigation? I'm sorry, what are you thinking?
E15?
During dock, I'm reading paragraph 15, during dock system construction phase. any damage to any resource area shall be replicated.
We can,
It doesn't refer to these
maintenance,
type of transient or temporary activities.
we could change that one, and then that covers it. And this is 95% of the docks that are out there.
So let's talk about that point when we get to 15.
Yeah, can we do that, Joe? Because it doesn't fit with this, this is the line.
You get my point, so I hope you'll do the responsible thing, but again, at the minimum, include the word feasible, where feasible, in this particular paragraph.
Other comments from the public?
I have a comment.
What's your name, sir?
John Cusick.
Give me the address, please.
I don't have to give you my address. So why don't you ask the harbor master his address while you're at it? I don't have to give you my address.
Okay.
Here's my comment. Someone said maybe on the board here that there were no regulations, zero regulations, but you have an order of conditions that the float piers would be removed and taken off land instead of dragging it up over the salt marsh and storing it. So that was a regulation that was in an order of conditions. So that perhaps is going away, be a benefit. Secondly, Mr. Grafton showed us a PowerPoint of Verizon, but that work over there didn't last from November 1st to May 1st. Taking these floats up over the marsh and the vegetation and storing it for that extended period of time, it would definitely have some impact on the plants that are there. This is not a good idea. You guys are there to protect the environment. Something like this, where a float or a pier should be removed. You've talked about in stages, I think that was Mr. Burt. And that defeats the whole thing because it would sit there on the lower part of the marsh and do some damage. So I think you ought to pass on this and come back and have a more detailed regulation where the float should be removed and taken off site. And that would solve everything. You wouldn't have to worry about destroying any of the marshland or having a PowerPoint that you could say, Mr. Grafton, how long were those Verizon mats there? They were there for 5-6 months.
They were there, those mats were there for approximately 2 weeks. Approximately 2 weeks.
That's what I meant, yeah. See, so for you to show that and say there's no damage, yeah, 2 weeks, okay.
So the difference, Mr. Cusick.
We're talking November 1st to May 1st, and it definitely will do damage to the environment, and it's not a good idea. Just take these floats. People have enough money to have these piers and walkways 1,000 feet long. They can well afford to just remove them and store them off site, not on the town's marshes. That's
Okay,
no comment. Yeah.
thank you for your comments, Mr. Cusick. You want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to work on that. So the difference, it was a short period of time for Maycombers. We're talking about 30,000 pounds and driving, okay, with the pounding pile drivers, okay? That was intense. You had 4 cherry pickers out there driving over and then sitting on it. That was intense. So that was the point. So if the public out there would just listen to the factual data here that I'm presenting, what's happening is we had a short-term project on mats with extreme weight and extreme quantity of vehicles moving, and we had no damage. And it was basically right up against this new timeline that we're looking at, which is the late April, early May. That's the point there. Bert made the point about storage off-site. It's very difficult. Some of these would cause some difficulty with traffic and so on. And to get them out of the floodplain truly is going to be an extreme event also. I don't think anybody in Massachusetts is doing anything like that, and they haven't been since they started putting docks in. That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
We know one of your members haven't been doing that, so good. Made a good point, Mr. Grafton.
Other comments from the public?
Hi there, Joe Rossi here.
Hi, Joe.
Hi there. I wanted to just quickly comment all the points. I appreciate, first of all, the commission taking our letter into consideration. And as chair of the Marshfield's PPI and CRS committee, I really think the driving factors in our letter were to highlight the fact that, one, we do need consistent messaging around this. So the fact that we're developing that is encouraging. So I want to first make sure that I note that. But two, on consistent messaging, is that we clearly message in our outreach material, which is predominantly what we do, is community outreach on flood hazards for the town of Marshfield. That removing debris and securing items is a big focus of what we go out and talk to the community about. And so I think Bill had mentioned, maybe we can get together or talk more about the anchoring piece of this. I think that's predominantly where we're concerned, because we don't want to go out and tell people to anchor things and then people are watching floats go by their property. So we need that town-wide consistent messaging about anchoring things, bringing things out of the water, not just floats. We talk about this with many other things that people have around their homes and structures and businesses. So that's the primary goal. And I think we also wanted to highlight the fact that by being a CRS community, we are expected to and looked upon by FEMA and others to have much better, in our case, standards than the minimum standards for the National Flood Insurance Program's floodplain management program. So again, encouraged that this is being thought about. Maybe we can have a little bit more discussion around the anchoring piece. And maybe even further discussions about removals and stuff like that. So that's all the comments I wanted to make. Again, I appreciate you taking our letter into consideration and having me here.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Are any anti-fouling coatings allowed on these floating structures? Like, what's the bottom surface of them?
Typically not that I've seen. I don't think we have any regulation that talks about that, do we, Mike?
Oh, they're all wood, most of them. I think they're all wood, and they
Wood and plastic and...
PT wood, some are rotor molded black tubs, that do get some muscles on them, but as far as bottom painting.
Typically, they get a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Mr. Finn and I are familiar with that. For 20 years, we've been putting them in and out at the Marshfield Yacht Club.
Yeah,
But,
if you ever see the Marshfield Yacht Club,
because-
piles of floats.
Look and smell.
You can smell it from my house.
Because the floats aren't underway, you're not worried about resistance or anything. Basically, you just let it accumulate over the season, and then it
I
dies
just
off.
wondered if there was a leaching, from that kind of thing, because I've seen some people treat them in the past. Not here.
The pressure-treated wood could be a factor, but that's addressed in some of these things.
Thank you.
You got more, Joe?
Just to follow on to what Mr. Grafton stated, that activity with the driving of the poles was a short-term, intense activity, and it's not something that would be an annual, I would expect to be an annual activity. And we all appreciate the resiliency of, the marshes and all that, but you're talking about activity that's an annual thing, once up, once back, that's over time that could cumulative effects.
Yeah.
And I think the comments about anti-fouling agents are very well taken. I think the references to the actual pontoons or flotation elements of the dock. So those are aren't they typically aluminum?
No. Plastic,
Plastic.
black plastic, polyethylene. You're talking to a chemist here, so it's polyethylene. I can draw you a structure if you'd like, Joe.
So you're gonna scrape some plastic across the marsh.
Yeah.
But and the point again about moving is that you're supposed to avoid any dragging at all. And you're gonna have to have that high tide, you know, and you gotta hit it right at that point to avoid any kind of dragging, abrasion or whatever.
Yeah, well, I've watched the companies work the rivers that are moving floats, and they're actually right on time. They do as good a job as anybody could do. They've been doing it for a long, long time.
It's a good business to go into. 70 floats that need to be moved on the same day.
Yeah, are all of them getting moved? No.
Well,
No,
that's-
but at least we're making an effort to improve things here instead of just letting it lie and doing nothing.
Well,
So,
if you're gonna make the effort, then go the whole way.
well, the whole way would be pile them all up at your house, Joe.
Well, just add the language feasible.
He's in a floodplain.
Oh, you're in a floodplain? Oh, sorry, we can't do that.
No, and again, that amount, I
Bill,
mean, would
go
be
ahead.
good business for the marinas.
We have to
Joe,
wrap.
thanks a lot. You've been
we have to
really,
wrap
really
this
helpful on
this
this.
one up, guys.
I'd like to just do a closing comment to Joe Rossi's point. So what this is allowing us to do is we haven't been able to regulate because we have so many of these anomalies out there that are, we'd have to just bring in everybody. That's just what happens. So now we can fine tune it. We can fine tune under the policy and procedure guide a methodology, and then we convey that. And quite frankly, the dock property owners have been really good about cooperating. So once they get their regulations, they get a certificate of compliance, ongoing conditions, they know what's going on. So we've really structured it nicely, to your point in the beginning, and I'd just like to close with that.
Okay, all right. So, I make a motion that we adopt this modified language and.
Right, I change it to May 1st, okay?
Change it to May 1st, yeah. Yeah, but we adopt this modified language in E10, as we've discussed, as a directional attempt to begin to do a better job of dealing with storage of seasonal floats. Do I have a second?
Second,
Craig.
Right? Roll call vote. Art?
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
Rick Carver, yes.
Okay, that's a 5-0 vote. Thank you, everybody, for the very helpful comments.
And you've got a note of the action item we have for guidance in terms of anchoring floats.
Yep, Joe had great comments on that. John had some comments as well.
Okay.
And they were great too.
Do I say something?
No.
Okay. Okay, so then 11, no action on that. 12, nothing. 13, nothing. 14, I'm gonna get this out of here.
Yeah, 14 is just a little more specificity around a common configuration for a float, T-shaped, 90 degrees to the gangway. Just a little more specific description of what we would like to see. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Nope, none.
Public? Comments from the public? Yes, Paul?
Paul Armstrong, 33 Reed Road. What is the reason just for the T? It can't be at an angle, depending on the hydrographic of the below it, if you have to refigure the dock to keep your clearance?
This is just preferred?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's just preferred. If we've done some modifications where people had to do an angle to hit a deep water spot and to create more space in the channel, and so that's not going to be a problem.
Just your setbacks from the marshes and so on, I just want to make sure you're not held to just that T if you had to go at an angle.
You're not held to just that T. It's preferred. Anybody else? Public? All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Full disclosure, Paul, that was discussed at length with the T versus I configuration for like two people joining a dock and two homeowners together, and that's why it says preferred. I get your point of angle on a dock, but really it goes like from that point out, so. And most of the docks in town are boilerplated to the T shape
No, I get it,
anyway.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, thanks for the clarification, Mike. All right, then I make a motion that we adopt the new language on E14. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Art. Roll call vote. Art?
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carber, yes. So that one's unanimous.
Okay, 15 is the next one. So, the old language read for all docks and A and Zs, the predicted rate of relative sea level rise of 2.8 per 100 years shall be incorporated in the project-specific design and construction. That evolved, that we striking that because the town planner had commented a little bit about this, and that 2.8 shows up in two locations, one in the dock performance standards and in another location. So we're addressing that here and eliminating it and then adding new language.
So, brand-new language that is intended to empower the Conservation Commission to apply some mitigation if necessary. I mean, if there's damage done to the resource area and to vegetation during the construction phase, and I guess we could talk about, to Joe's point, should we add something there about any damage that occurs to vegetation or a marsh during the storage phase? Not so sure we want to do that, but we could talk about that. But the intent of this is mitigation, so during dock system construction phase, any damage to the resource area vegetation shall be replicated at a ratio of up to 4:1 at the discretion of the commission. When such replication is deemed necessary, a restoration planting plan shall be submitted to the commission for review. The plan shall be prepared by a qualified consultant approved by the commission. The plan, succession requirements, implementation, and the monitoring shall adhere to the expectations of the commission. Now, we're not prescriptive in terms of what we're going to look for people to do, but we want to have the ability, if there's damage done, to have a way to rebuild, reconstruct the vegetation. It could be eelgrass that's submerged, it could be the marsh, it could be something else. This article spends a lot of time talking about towns spending a lot more time and energy in mitigation efforts to restore resources that get damaged during construction. Commissioners, comments, questions? Bert, you must have something.
Not on this.
Okay. Public? Anybody from the public? Joe?
Joe?
And again, just to add a couple of words, during the dock system construction, maintenance, or operation phase.
Okay.
I like that.
It covers, do it again, Joe, let me write it down so I
During the
can,
dock system construction, comma, maintenance,
right,
and operation.
okay.
You could
Phase,
use-
right?
Phase in there, take phase in, put it out.
So here's what he's saying construction, right here. I don't know if the commission wants this or not, but I'm gonna put it in for them to look at it, if that's okay.
Good.
Is that okay?
I like it.
I agree with him,
Yeah.
actually.
Or operation?
Or operation phase. I think that reads pretty well.
Operational phase.
Better. Yeah, that's a great pickup, Joe, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's good. Could
Okay,
be a future commissioner.
Joe? Maintenance and operational, Joe
That'd be a
Pasevich,
planking room.
okay. That gives the whole scope, and,
But follow up with me after a couple of weeks.
Okay.
right, because the operational phase could be potentially ongoing,
Yeah.
right? And the maintenance could be ongoing, so construction was either in the initial work or some other step later, so,
Well, that covers the,
yeah.
moving the
Basically
float.
anything,
float.
right?
Basically anything.
So
Yeah,
You do damage, we have an opportunity
comprehensive.
to ask for mitigation.
you break it, you
So it's
fix
good.
it.
Look at it the wrong way and it dies, then you gotta get mitigation, you know,
yeah.
so.
No,
Okay.
that's an excellent addition.
Yeah.
Joe, excellent, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Any other comments, suggestions from the public?
I have one on 17.
I need names, guys.
James Summers.
Yeah.
Okay,
On 17, but I just wanted to get it in if we're done with 15.
we're done with 5. We need to vote though, so I'm
So
gonna make
they're
a
gonna
motion that we accept the
Edited,
original proposed and edited language for mitigation with performance standard E15. Do I have a second?
Second.
Susan,
Susan?
coming in strong there.
Roll call vote? Art?
Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes.
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carber, yes.
500, okay, great,
500.
well done, team. All right, so, which, you want us to go back? We can't go back and change it because they voted on it.
On 17?
17's coming up, but they didn't plan to do
No, it
it.
wasn't anything up to.
Right, okay, so he's introducing 17, which was not, 16, 17, 18, 19 were not being changed, but the
I'll listen
gentleman wants
to,
to
I'll
talk
listen
about
to your
17.
comment. You're here tonight, showing an interest, I'm gonna listen to what you have to say.
I was noting that the language on 17, except low wattage bulbs, I'm involved in the lighting industry and a lighting engineer. That's sufficiently vague, especially with LED bulbs that are developed today, which can A, disrupt wildlife due to the spectral distribution of them, and B, be disruptive also to nighttime navigation on the river, because they're very specular sources. They're much more direct than, say, a tungsten bulb. And if the commission's interested, I could do some research and make some recommendations in that area. Low wattage, for example, today, if you said today, if it was a tungsten bulb, a 60-watt light bulb, most people would say, oh, that's not all that bright. If you had a 60-watt LED bulb there, it would be blinding.
Yeah.
So maybe some sort of provisions or guidelines would be helpful. I'm not sure of the effect on local aquatic life, but on the seashores, turtle breeding, for example, is severely impacted by the spectrum of lights. And there's a recommended cutoff in the spectral distribution of anything below 580 nanometers so that allows them to breed appropriately and not disrupt their cycles.
No, I think we would love to,
Next phase.
yeah, in the next phase, take advantage of the expertise you have.
Well, can you send it to us? You could send it to me and to Mike. It's M. Seeley
That's
at
great.
Town of Marshfield, B.
It's
Grafton.
terrific.
Yeah,
That's
wonderful.
great, because, that guide that Rick keeps talking about that I showed earlier had a whole thing about lighting, so it was in there. So thank you very much.
It's appreciated, thank you again.
Thank you for allowing me to come.
Okay, we're going to item number 20 to talk about piles. I guess as I had stated when the hearing began, piles were something that in the last revision of regulations, March 18th, 2021, piles were no longer permitted effective March 18th in any of the rivers, South River, North River. And I think that was an attempt to harmonize the use of piles between the resource areas, the South River along with the North River. The North River typically doesn't require piles. The North River Commission doesn't like them. They don't allow them or haven't been allowing them, but the North River has deep water very quick as soon as you move away from the bank. As Dave Hill said to us when we came to visit the task force a few weeks back, he said, we asked him for his opinions on piles, and he said, well, Marshfield is not like any other towns, or not like most towns. He says, you have some rivers where the tidal water velocity in that 1/3 middle segment is really brisk and really dangerous. And he says his opinion is he doesn't know how you not use piles to secure a float from a safety standpoint. And that view was corroborated by Mike. He feels very strongly that it's a safety issue. We realize it would be nice not to have to use piles, but in the case of high water velocity areas, we're proposing that we revert back to allowing piles in the river. The town has town piers, town docks, harbor master has facilities, they all have piles. Right? So how can we tell homeowners they can't have piles? But I think it really boils down to a matter of safety and the ability to securely attach a float in areas where the water velocity is high. So we went back and forth, and myself, Harbor Master DeMeo, Dave Hill, and I think Joe Ring, the other commissioner, all were kind of on that side of that discussion. I will not recommend, as a commissioner, a regulation and a change of a regulation unless it absolutely has the support of the harbor master. Mike Mike paroles those waters. He's responsible for navigation. He's responsible for safety, and we have to have his support, period. Okay? So, however, we also want to encourage people to not use them if they don't have to. And so I'm going to recommend that we strike the second sentence.
Okay.
And again, this is a case where new language that we wrote didn't make the final revision before it gets sent out,
Okay.
unfortunately. Apologies. But I have another sentence, another two sentences that essentially, in areas primarily in the North River where you have deep water right away, you don't have to go out very far to find it. The tidal velocity in many places is not as severe as it is in places on the South River where I live. In cases like that, we have a few dozen examples of more secure attachments with metal hinges where the top of the gangway and the bottom of the gangway to the pier, to the float, are secured with very robustly designed, engineered metallic attachments. This is something that Keith Wallow has come up, who does from harbor mooring in Situate, and we have several successful examples of that. So the language I'm going to suggest is that where possible and where feasible, and where you can still ensure a safe attachment of that float to that pier structure, that endeavor to look to do designs that do not incorporate piles. But certainly in areas where there's high water velocity and there's an issue around safety, make sure the design incorporates safety as a primary motivation. So,
Where do I start?
get rid of the second sentence, strike that one.
This here?
No,
This one here?
that one there.
It's going away right now. Okay. Bye-bye.
So, start typing this one in and then we can debate it.
Okay.
Additionally, and whenever possible,
All right, hold on. Additionally, and whenever possible, right,
comma,
yeah.
solutions for float attachment without piles are strongly encouraged.
Solutions for float attachments
Without piles are strongly encouraged.
without piles are strongly
Encouraged.
period, okay.
Successful methods providing secure float attachments.
Okay.
To piers and gangways are possible therefore reducing the cumulative adverse effects to the resource areas and habitat. Remember, I'm a chemist, I'm a biochemist writing English.
You're doing a fine job.
Less is better.
Less is more?
Less is better.
I'm saving that now, okay. All right.
And then the last sentence, no piles driven that will result in fracturing any adjacent bank material. So you want to back piles up so you're not tumbling the earth and the bank in. And that the location of all piles shall be shown on any plan submitted for approval under these regulations. So the proposal is piles are back. Why? Because we think it's the safest way to go, safest, most secure way to go. Well, Mike doesn't have to be driving around the town rivers picking up pieces of floating docks all over town, and that's happened several times before since I moved to town. And a lot of the engineers were pushing back on this issue as well over the past year. But we want to encourage people, where possible, if you want to try a more secure method with those robust rugged attachments on the top of the gangway and the bottom of the gangway for the float. Those have been proven in several cases, and we can point people to those cases where those are functioning and working and doing a good job.
Support.
Bill.
So there's, just for the town, the public that's watching, there's areas that have got attenuation of high tidal velocity, and they really just rip and tear. An example is over in the South River. There's still a dock system out there from the 2018 that got turned into a roller coaster, you know, so it depends on how they're built, and they get hammered. So this provides protection against that, and then the whole system falling apart, and that's that. But it also provides a way of trying to encourage less piles in the river, which can also have impacts, as per the comments coming from the document that Rick had talked about earlier. I have a feeling that we should probably hang that on our website, now I think about it more and more, so people can see that as a helpful document, you know? The one that you were referencing,
Yeah.
so. Factual data all the way.
Yes, Bill?
I don't think you need the second sentence of the second paragraph. I think you add additionally, after the word recommended, continue the next sentence, not a new paragraph. Additionally, and wherever possible, solutions for float attachments, loud piles are strongly encouraged. And then drop the rest of that paragraph. You don't need it.
Are you saying to get rid of that?
I'm saying get rid of that, and then I'm saying take the additionally and start it after recommended. Make that one paragraph.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, so, if I'm understanding,
Move that whole,
Take that first sentence, the sentence that begins with additionally, and attach that sentence to additionally whenever possible. So, put a period after recommend,
are you saying in the full, okay, got it now.
and then additionally start the sentence, and let that sentence go through the word encouraged is fine, and then strike the last sentence.
okay, that's clear. Less is more.
Right.
Oh,
What happened
okay,
there?
we can get rid of that different way, I guess. There we go, that's nice.
I'm not insulted that you're striking my words. I think it's
That's-
better.
It's not meant to be insulting.
No, I
Striking.
realize that. You're on our team.
Striking.
I don't want to do that.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it just so, sometimes that's the best way. Piles are permitted to secure floats in locations where tidal velocity is high in order to ensure a secure and safe attachment. As such, maximizing piling spacing is recommended. Additionally, and whenever possible, solutions for float attachments without piles are strongly encouraged. No pile shall be driven in a location which will result in the fracture of any adjacent bank material. Location of all piles shall be shown on any plan submitted for approval under these regulations.
Works for me.
Commissioners?
Fine.
Sue, good?
Good.
Okay. Comments from the public? Mike DeMayo, you're,
Joe will go first, I'm still reading it.
Oh, okay, mine is pretty brief. Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. In that first paragraph there, a reference to piles, should that be for float attachments without driven piles?
driven piles?
Designated?
I don't want to go there. We have like all kinds of rules about jetting and all kinds of things. That's in the policy and procedure.
Because you
Yeah,
referred to
well,
piles.
the intent is driven piles.
Right, so, because you refer to no piles shall be driven in the following paragraph. So it's like the only piles you're dealing with are driven piles, but aren't there different types of piles? Like screw piles?
What about this, Ricky?
Sorry, Paul, I
Take,
don't wanna take this-
what if I take this driven and say, shall be, no pile shall be driven, shall be
Shall be placed.
allowed,
Placed.
placed? Okay, watch this. And then take that out, right? Oh, you gotta spell it right. Something like that, allowed. Wait, let's get this thing in.
Do you have a
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought those guys were almost, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Summers.
Did you finish?
Well, one other thing, I'm not quite done.
Told you. Go ahead, Joe.
Just for my own clarification, bank areas,
So you got inland and you got coastal.
and is there a dimensional? or-
So there's all kinds of fun situations. So you'll typically have them on the extreme edges of salt marsh or, maybe the coastal banks of like, say, Preston Terrace. Then we also have inland perennial streams, like we've got one, at least one right now, and it's got multiple banks. So you would go off the land, hit a bank, and then hit a third bank. So, those are all coastal in that case because they are in coastal waterways. Inland is when it's freshwater.
But is the bank have some dimensional? definition?
Yeah, there's a policy, and it's Mass DEP 92-1. It's an engineering thing. It's where the 4-to-1 breaks and hits a 10-to-1. So it's that break there, which typically defines it, and that's something that an engineer or even land surveyors can do. And we can all do it too if we calculate it properly. I've seen it done, and I've done it,
Right.
but it's a profession. So that's typically what that means.
No, it's covered here, but I'm just curious about the definition.
Paul, can I get your address? Because I didn't get it before. What's your address?
33 Reeves Road.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for cooperating.
Any further? You have another comment or question?
I just had a question, and that was on the installation of the pilings.
Got you from before.
Are there regulations in terms of the methods that can be used for driving the pilings?
It's in the policy and procedure
the
guide.
policy and
You can look at
procedure.
it if you come down to our office. Email me if you have an interest.
But there's things there about blasting and stuff.
Well,
like
there's
that.
no jetting, no water jetting. It's typically vibration hammering.
So we could stop, so how we can stop anything is, and Mr. Finn and I will tell you, is if it has a significant adverse or cumulative adverse effect on any of the resource areas or the wetland interest under this town, state, or the wetland values under the town. Any of that combined, we can say the commission has interest here, cease and desist, it can go on like that.
So in the permitting process, they have to specify the methodology used for putting the pilings in.
It's not prescriptive, that's the word we use. We have to leave some flexibility, and we have people responding to this, and it keeps getting better. They keep finding different solutions. So if we're prescriptive, they're in a box, they can't function. So the idea is to create some flexibility, and we know with innovations and some of the expertise that's out there, they will improve. We will get better resource protection. We want that. We're getting great comments tonight from people.
Right. Public's good? Mike?
So 20's definitely cleaner than what we first have, but I think you're kind of painting people in a box a little bit by having most of the docks be secured from floats and brackets and things like that. Because once you have that, you're almost forcing people to use moorings and chains to secure it as well. Because what happens sometimes with docks like that, in areas that don't currently have permits, they're probably going to go back and want pilings to secure those. Because there are some projects in docks that the dock box is moving because they don't have pilings and because they're secured with brackets. So now people are gonna come back and say, well, I need I need mooring blocks and chain to secure these floats. So what's less of an impact, a couple of pilings or 30 feet of mooring chain dragging on the bottom? So that's something you should consider for this one. Because those docks do exist as well. So you have helical screws, which I don't believe really work that well because you can't really maintain them once they rust. But mooring blocks, same thing. The mooring blocks go deep into the mud and you can't change the chain. Then you have a mooring block that's in there as potential ghost gear. So there are some other impacts that besides pilings and brackets. Just for future, just saying.
Okay. All right.
I'm not offering any solutions or changes,
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yes, Paul?
I agree with Mr. DeMayo's comments. The size of very large diameter mooring blocks with the chains, the impact of the size of those moorings compared to a couple of pilings the diameters of a pipe line. You're talking in the ground.
Yeah.
And not only that, the chains dragging back and forth and the constant maintenance of those where the piles will last, a long, long time and have much less impact than that. The other alternative is like a ranger system, is the arms that come off of the pier that go out. But again, it's something that's the only other option is that. And I will say that the dock-mounted ramp systems for securing the floats to the piers, they only work past the 3A bridge or past the Julian Street Bridge where you've got no coverage at all. It's just, everyone I've seen, they do eventually break. And when they break, that dock ends up in doing damage more than you can imagine somewhere. So the impact of having, the pile supporting it is much less than you'll have in the future for other damage.
Oh, but I think what we're saying is people come in with
Oh,
a
I
plan
agree.
and they're
I'll put it in.
prescribing
Yeah.
piles as part of the engineer plan. We're okay with
I
that.
think it's gonna be case by case as they come in, you'll have to
Yeah.
look at them.
Yeah.
I think your language is clear, frankly, because what you're saying there is wherever possible, whenever possible, solutions are encouraged. I think that's fine.
Yeah, we don't want to.
You're not limiting people to no piles. You're not saying no piles. You're just saying wherever you can do it without piles, it's good.
Right.
I think you're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We have to.
Okay. Good discussion.
Good
All right.
closure comments there from Bill Finn.
Yeah. All right, so I'll make a motion to roll call vote on E20. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Art. Roll call vote, Art?
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carver, yes?
500. Okay,
So
thank you for the
500.
very good comments, everybody.
Yeah, excellent.
All right, so, all righty. This one
We
has,
don't have that many left to go, folks.
this one is really.
We're all going to Joe's house for pizza when we get done with this.
He likes that, he's like.
I want to see where we're going to put the floats, Joe.
That made him
The floats
smile.
are coming, Joe.
They probably fit 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's a de minimis.
Me too.
I want to know how you're anchoring them.
Excuse me. So, Mr. Hearing Officer, this has a clerical error. There was like a hanging dash, which, I highlighted on the items that we had posted on the website. So between the 21 right here and here, there was a dash. It's out of here because I just
Okay.
wanted to let you know that it's gone.
Okay.
And it looks like the only item here is this one that's being added, and you have all that language that's being struck. So, clerical error, strikeage, and then we've added the one down here.
All right.
That's pretty much it.
I don't think we'll have any discussion on that, right?
No,
I
I'm
make a-
good.
Make a motion that we accept the,
Wait, comments from the public?
any comments from the public on clerical errors? Okay. Stop giggling there.
Okay.
I make a motion that we vote to accept the corrections on the clerical errors.
Second.
Roll call vote. Art?
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes.
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carver, yes. Okay?
That's a 500. Okay. 22, looks like another straightforward one. We've struck the word normal here to just make it use and added navigable waterway. This one's gonna cause a lot of problems.
Any discussion on addition of navigable waterway?
And the striking of normal.
Nope, not for me.
Comments from the public?
Great.
All right, I make a motion that we accept the addition of navigable waterway
And striking of normal.
and the striking of normal to E22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Art.
Art? Roll call vote.
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carver, yes.
Beautiful. Okay, nothing on 23, nothing on 25. This one also has a clerical error as well as this regulatory. The clerical is right here. These parentheses were, should this be, that's inches, right? All right, okay. Okay, so these were, for some reason, they were in green in the regulations, so they're changed back to black. That's the clerical error. All right, all the quotation marks here on the 2, the 8, the 3, and the 6, they're fixed in front of you. They were green in the current regulations. So,
Okay.
and then we had the red is all additions, and this one strikeage over here, piling. All right.
So, this, comments from the hearing officer on piling. So pilings are back, which I think is the right thing to do, right thing, responsible thing to do. However, we had a lot of discussion about security, safety, and the proposal was made that potentially we should suggest and require greenheart piles, which are species Chlorocardium rhodei, grown in South America, which are renowned to have 3 to 4 times the durability and bending strength of treated pine or fir piles, and contain natural resistance to marine borers and decay without chemical treatment and leaching. They're more expensive, but I think the benefits of safety, security, I don't think they twist as badly. This was a suggestion that Mike had made, that I think it's a bit of, if we're gonna allow piles, let's use real good ones, I think was the sentiment there. And then regarding CCA, if people are gonna cut CCA, they really should use tarps to collect and safely dispose of chips, sawdust, and cuttings so it doesn't get into the resource area. So that's what the proposal is. And what was Dave Hill's feeling on that when we talked about that? Do you remember, Mike?
The tarps?
No,
Green Hearts.
the green hearts.
I think he was in favor of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you
thought so.
also have epoxy pounds and fiberglass pounds as well, which we don't really discuss here, but green hearts are probably the preferred ones. They're gonna last a lot longer, more susceptible to ice flow, things like that. And you get rid of the CCA, more of a natural piling.
Yeah. We also talked a lot about, and I actually met and had a cocktail with a guy down southeastern Mass that built a total fiberglass pier, dock, and piles. The whole thing was fiberglass. And he used monopiles, so he had big, thick monopile fiberglass piles. The decking everything was fiberglass. It was beautiful. And it cost him about 20% more than if he had done it all in wood. And so we don't want to be prescriptive about steel or fiberglass or, but if you're going to use wooden piles and vibrate wooden piles in, I think our expectation is for safety and durability, we'd like people to use green hearts. It's going to be a little more expensive, but I think the benefits are going to be there.
Better for storm conditions and hurricanes and moistures.
Yeah. So
I'd be curious to hear Mr. Armstrong's comment on that.
we have to do commission discussion first.
Could
Yeah, we'll hear
you clarify the botanical name of the,
Yeah, it's called Chlorocardium.
okay.
It's CHLORO, and then it's all one word, cardium, CARDIUM. And the second name is rhodii. It's
Okay.
RODIEI. And this was Bill Finn's suggestion is to just name the species of wood. It makes it real clear.
Okay, so I need help with
You
that.
can't misinterpret what you mean by greenhouse.
So
Yeah.
I need help to do that, and then I think there's comments also.
So, Art, you have,
Just one comment, and that's been involved with writing federal guidelines, do we want should or must? Are you saying this really should be done, or must be done, or?
What's the supply, to add to that, what's the supply of these? Can people get them,
I think Paul Armstrong grows them in his backyard.
So, I mean, that was my
Are we wiping
question.
out the rainforest to get these?
Can I help clarify some of this?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Excuse me,
Oh, he's
Armstrong.
Got it.
Respectfully, I'm all for the green hearts. I use them myself, but the problem is building it on the pier construction end of it is very difficult. Mainly because if you're doing the pier walkways with the 6x6s going out to the, along the marsh and so on, you can't get them. They don't make them. You're only talking the round green heart pile that you get from different countries, and the availability of them most of the time is very scarce right now. Number two, I recommend using for the float construction, where the float, like the one I just did past your house, I put green hearts in, out in the river where the ice flows and navigation is for strength and so on. Absolutely 100%, I prefer the green hearts there. But on the construction end of the pier, it's very difficult to get dimensional lumber sizes in a green heart, like a 6x6 for somebody building a pier and so on.
I don't think we're talking about that, are we? Isn't it just?
No,
I think we're
it
talking
says
about just
for pier
piles.
construction, for piles of pier
Yeah.
construction.
The intent was to secure the dock.
Is that just for
If
dock?
you have
alone?
two piles secured in a 10x20 float, it should be 2 green hearts or 4.
That I accept 100%.
I
The
think
dock,
that-
the dock box and everything inside.
I just wanted to get clarified
Could
on
be
that.
PT, CC, whatever, CCA.
So maybe we should add, I mean, that was the intent, Paul.
No, I'm good with that. I just wanted to make sure that's what the intent was.
Yeah.
So,
So I think if Mike is saying this is really what should be done, we should
Right.
change that from
Yeah.
should to must.
And that kind of gets back to my point where some docks are held by the gangway and brackets, and now it's putting a lot of strain on the dock box, that the dock boxes are moving because there's no pilings holding in the structure
Yeah.
of the pier, of the
Yeah.
dock.
Yeah.
And that really locks everything else in. So, but like I said, if you're gonna have green hearts holding a dock, you want the best stuff to hold it in.
Yeah.
Versus a PT piling that snap off.
Pilings must, pilings
for float security.
must be,
Right,
green hearts must be
pilings
used for
to secure
floats.
floats must be,
Right.
green hearts.
Right.
That's it. You get that, Bill?
No. So let's go back, because you guys worked it out. So,
Pilings used to secure floats should be green hearts.
all right,
Must
used,
be.
Must be green hearts.
okay, used to secure floats must be
Well,
green
you
hearts.
spoke that we're not excluding fiberglass or steel, right?
wooden pilings.
Wooden pile,
used.
wooden
There you go.
pilings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go back and go wooden pilings. Good catch, Bert.
Yeah.
This is great. We have all these experienced people in the room. It's awesome.
What was the thing about the specific name of the tree? So do I have to put that in there also?
It's a generic thing. It's like saying a truck, and there's like 5 different, I mean, there's so many different species of green hearts. It's just a generic name.
Yeah.
There's
I have the, well, let's use the species name. That was Bill's.
4,000 of them are getting delivered to Carver for a cranberry bog. And that's what I'm saying, there's all different, depending what country they're coming from. There's-
They're different species.
Yes, so.
They're all
you
different
can't-
species.
Yes, you can't specifically say that term.
Could we just say?
Are they all,
Green hearts are equal.
are
is
they
what I
all
would say.
the genus Chlorocardium?
That
No.
I don't know, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can watch this, or
Using
equivalent.
the scientific name was to specify that particular species. So that's the species, when you use the word green heart, you backed it up with the scientific name to identify that particular species.
Yeah, but if there are many, many different types of species that are green
Right.
hearts, then we don't want to.
Well, there's lots of trees, piles from trees, different types of trees are called green hearts. You've identified what is accepted as green hearts by identifying that particular species.
Yeah, well, that species is what they insist on using in Europe for all.
That is the species that should be, when you refer to green hearts, that's what they're really talking about.
But can people
Yes.
get them?
Yes.
So why don't we say?
So watch this, just to help you out. So I've got it up here, green hearts, then we go and put the specific species or equivalent. Now you're safe.
I think there's an equivalent. There's no such thing as an equivalent.
Well,
to that
that's,
species.
as another person saying differently, that's all, Bill. I'm only saying, we're trying to capture everything.
If I
and be done by-
understood Mr. Armstrong correctly, different countries might have a different species.
I think if I understood what Mr. Armstrong was saying was that there's all kinds of species that are called greenhouse.
That's correct.
And what I'm saying is, you've avoided that problem by specifying exactly what species you're talking about.
But then you might have limited so much if there's a war in that country, now you can't get them, and all docks stop here.
That's my concern.
So,
Why don't
okay,
we-
but I'm
why
trying to
don't we
help
say-
everybody.
Why don't we specify this series, or an equivalent species?
Right, exactly. So I just need the language right here, I'm on it. So green hearts, whatever the language is, you know, I need the
If you say
language.
that, then it's open to pine and anything else.
That's right. I don't
Back
see
to
how you
square.
do that.
Well, no, I mean,
Well,
we
no,
can,
you
we,
got the specs
no,
of the
I
lumber,
don't-
it's like Douglas fir or something like that, you know, it's.
There is no such thing as an equivalent species.
Yeah, I guess you're
Down
right.
that, so it could be similar or something like that.
Performance.
That's the whole trick.
Right, performance. That's right.
what is the name of the species? I'll put it in there.
CHLOROCARD,
All one word?
yeah, IUM, chlorocardium. And the second word is rhodii, RODIEI.
Okay. So I think the first one gets
Or could we say, or
capitalized.
similarly performing species?
That's,
Or
yeah,
equivalent
I think
performance.
probably wouldn't be equivalent, but similar performer, something like that, yeah, because that's the intent, right?
I don't think I got this spelled right.
We don't.
No, you don't.
So is this Rhodei, RODEI,
RODIEI.
right? And then let's get the first one.
And you've got an extra H in chlorocardium. Take
Here.
that H out.
And now I got it?
Yep.
Yeah,
All right. Or equivalent,
I think similar, because equivalent is equal.
well, we use equal, equivalent, or better all the time. And so, oh my God. You see what I just did? Okay. There we go. Or equivalent performance.
Mr. Biochemist.
Trying to
Yes.
find the name, they found one called Volavo or something like that. I'm trying to find the name of it.
it can't be
There
equivalent.
were two or three.
Yeah, no, you're right,
I
you're right.
agree, yeah.
So it's gotta say, or similar,
I think you should just leave
Equivalent.
green hearts. Just leave green heart. Leave it at that. Get into this,
It's dangerously close to prescriptive. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going chlorocardium rhodii. Or similar performance equivalent,
It's kind of repetitive, but if you want that, I'll put it in.
or performance equivalent.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Performance equivalent.
What's that?
Turns into
Yeah.
a debate. Somebody could say, well, a center pine pile is just as good in these conditions. Right?
I don't like that at all.
I believe that the accepted practice, if you go and you go into the literature and look at it,
I looked it up today.
you'll see that when people refer to greenhouse, generally that's what the species they're talking about.
Then let's just
There are
leave
some
it
other,
at
there are
that.
some other species that are called red hearts or something like that, that are different species, and that are also used. But when people are talking greenhouse, they're generally talking that species.
Yeah, well, that's what the reading I did. I spent a half an hour looking that stuff up. That's what
Right.
they use in Europe?
Yeah.
So, but then the problem is, if we're locked into that and they become unavailable,
They're not really gonna become unavailable. I mean, they're-
supply chain issue, I mean,
So
who
this,
knows?
it's dangerously close to
I mean,
prescriptive.
Paul, if you went to order those today, can you get those?
some of them you can, yeah, but they come in, what do you call it, containers. They ship them in containers. They get delivered to Rhode Island and Connecticut. There's only two places you can get them from. It's not like you can just go to any place and get them. They're available, but they're tough. It's just because of overseas shipping and everything else. It's not something you
Well,
get
when
from
they
around
start the permitting process, they can start
Oh,
the
I get
hunt
it, I get
for
it.
piles. So, you know, it takes 2 years to get through the permitting process.
So I would go back to, this is great, you know, we could put this in the policy procedure guide, get that in there, you know, and then really massage this language, just get the green hearts in there, because now you know there's a lot of options. And somebody might have a price that's priced out and they go to a different country. Now, if you over specify here, now you can't do this. We have to have another meeting to clean it up. So you need degrees of freedom in interpretation. I see that section, I'm ready to strike that and go back to Green Hearts. I mean, it's a great conversation, but I don't decide. I don't decide.
What do you think, Mike? Leave it species specific?
Mike Seeley knew not to answer.
I thought the intent of Green Hearts were there. I mean, if somebody want to come in with a second substance of a second Green Heart, then I guess the for discussion during the permit process, but I think Green Heart kind of covers it.
I agree with Mike, just leave
The whole
Green
thing
Heart.
was it doesn't have chemicals. The Green Hearts last 50 years, so, you know, no insects, no bugs, no chemicals, eco-friendly. That was, I think, the intent, but you're also getting the durability and the strength for hurricanes and storms. If you're gonna have, like if I was building a dock, I would want the best piles holding it in place
Yeah.
versus the potential southern pine that snaps, which happens a lot.
So what if we said-
I'll defer to Paul on the pile situation.
Yeah. What if we said green hearts such as that species, which are renowned?
That would work.
Let's do that.
That
Okay.
would work.
I'm good with that.
We good with that? Can you
Yep.
capture that?
That would work.
Get rid of equivalent functioning.
This thing, can just take a few minutes, I'll read it. Wooden pilings used to secure the floats must be Green Hearts such as Corcadium rhodi, which are renowned for 3 to 4 times the durability and bending strength of treated pine or fir piles and contain natural resistance to marine borers and decay without chemical treatment and leaching. Yes?
Yep, good.
That'll work.
Yep. Paul, last comments on piles?
Is it open for public?
Yes.
So, all right, hang on, you are Lisa Messersmith, all right, go ahead.
Besides the grammar issue, I'm kind of obsessed with compulsive editor. I have a concern about they may be eco-friendly here, but is it sustainable practice to require a certain, if you're requiring cutting down the rainforest and the Amazon to get, you have to use that wood. I'm just saying that what are we saying here as a town? I don't know. I don't know whether these are endangered or I don't know anything about these species.
Everything I read today said that they're widely used and often mandated for marine construction in Europe. So,
Europe's very sustainable.
Could I address that a bit, because I had the same conundrum? And the answer is they are a renewable resource where they grow. But your concern is valid. I'm not questioning that at all.
Yeah.
But they're classified as renewable
Renewables.
resources.
yeah, well, what happens if there's a project that we permit, and this language is in the performance standards, and they can't get them? What do we do?
Have to use fiberglass or something else.
Yeah, right.
If available, watch this. All right, so wooden piles used to secure floats must be Green Hearts, somewhere in here, if available.
Don't change it, Bill.
Okay,
Don't
great.
change it, leave
Okay,
it.
good, all right.
Leave it. I think it's as good as we're gonna get
Yeah.
it. Last comment from Joe. Whoop.
I don't think you need the I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I just wanted to correct the English that are known for being
Okay,
3 to
gotcha.
4
Okay.
times the durability.
All
So
right.
you want which out of there? All right, we'll get
Yeah,
rid of
it's
which.
that are
That.
known for
Okay, are renowned
being,
for being,
that are known for being.
okay.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a biochemist writing English.
Stoichiometry, right?
Yeah.
Stoichiometry, yeah.
I'm
No,
good at
yeah.
stoichiometry.
Yeah,
I
just
Take
wanna
it.
stroke.
It's all about shapes, man.
Thank you.
Got it, okay.
She's mean on split infinity too.
I want to put parentheses around the 3 to 4, yeah? Or is that
Yeah.
no good?
No.
I don't like it
No.
either. I don't even like it.
You don't-
All right, got everybody distracted. All right, we're gonna close it with Joe.
All right.
I'm not.
And shouldn't it be 3 to 4 times more?
Joe has
Go ahead,
Well,
Joe.
all right, never mind.
Yeah, that are known for, 3 to 4 times
More durable.
more durable.
Okay,
And have the,
it was just, okay.
and have the bending strength of treated,
Talk about a
Pine
lot of
and
soup
fir
spoons in the
piles.
soup.
sorry.
Okay, all right, so I got it
You
now.
want it
More
right.
durability, no more clerical stuff here. Okay.
Well, just
No,
the parentheses around the species name, I don't know if you need, why you need parentheses there.
well, it's typically what you do with the scientific names. I'll take it out, but that's
No,
usually.
don't take it out.
Don't take it out.
Okay, good, that's what
Yeah,
you do.
my other comment,
And the caps on the front and the back ones has got a small, that's usually what happens.
my other comment is on the other sentence being added there, cutting of CCA
This
materials.
stuff down here.
Oftentimes when people cut CCA materials, they didn't treat them. They have some liquid solution of the CCA impregnating chemical that they then paint on the cut ends.
Okay.
And that stuff is very bad, very dangerous. You can't be letting that drip into a sensitive area.
Well, that's why we want tarps
There's
underneath.
no creosote woods. Here's your chance right here.
But it only refers to chips and stuff and cuttings. It should say cutting and treatment.
How about no creosote woods or chemical treatment? Check this out. This is
Cutting and treatment, because some people just accept that when you cut something, you have to treat
You
the
have to
end.
treat it, Bill. You have to treat the cuts. So
Oh, I didn't know.
It should,
I don't
it should
know.
say cutting and treatment of CCA materials, then under chips, sawdust, and cuttings, with chips, sawdust, drippings, and cuttings.
Put cuttings and treatments, that's all.
All right.
Cuttings and treatments.
Cuttings
Yep.
and treatments right now. Okay, how about that, right there? Did I get it?
Yep. Ready to make a motion?
All right, Joe, nice close. All right.
All right, then I make a motion that on Performance Standard E25, that we accept the modified language as we've co-developed, all of us.
Just one last thing, there is no such thing as 3x6, by the way.
3x6.
There's no such thing. It's 3x8. There's not one mill that makes a 3x6.
All right.
Just
3x8.
So there's a 2x8 and a 3x8. No, it's not a 2 by. There it is.
There's no such 3x6.
Got it?
Yeah, got it?
Anything else?
Is it
on that?
perfect?
Okay.
I'm not a glare, but
All right.
Hopefully don't let the perfect be the enemy of the
Yeah.
good.
So
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the modified language that we co-developed in
It's in stone.
E25. Do I have a second?
Second.
Art? Roll call vote?
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig Hanafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
Rick Carver, yes?
We're going to be
So,
sending this to general code
E25's in
eventually,
the books.
Lisa,
Thank
so
you
we'll
all
get
for
it
your
dealt with.
constructive contributions.
Okay.
Almost
now-
done.
Right, closing in. Number 26, no changes. 27 has some additions in red and in salt marshes being struck there.
Yeah, number 28, these are the normal charts.
27, Rick.
Oh, 27, sorry. No floats shall be allowed within blind or dead-end canals in or tidal creeks. Obstruction of navigable waterways by any means is prohibited. It's pretty clear. Commission, questions, discussion?
Nope.
No?
Public, questions, comments? Okay, make a motion that we adopt the new language in Performance Standard E27. Do I have a second?
Second,
Craig.
Roll call vote. Art?
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig Hanafin, yes?
Bert?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
Rick Carver, yes. So that passes. Bill?
That's 5-0, yep. All right, 28 needs work, all right? So there's your 28. This has to do with shellfish mitigation, sort of such.
Yeah, this is just some specific language that talks about the dollars per square foot mitigation to accommodate the adverse cumulative effects of the structure and its effect on the shellfish in areas where there's shellfish. The harbor master is the shellfish warden or officer in town, and these funds get used to buy new seedlings and to buy and maintain shellfish equipment. So we added, we've been adding that to dock projects as we go along. Now it's part of the performance standard. Commissioners, questions, comments? Everybody good?
I'm fine.
Public, Mike? Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question, just, does that mean, it's on a yearly basis or a one-time basis?
One time.
One time, okay, maybe put that in, to be clear.
Okay, let's figure out where to get that.
Where could we put that?
Okay, the shellfish is associated, watch this, associated with the,
The very end, doctors in for a one-time fee, as a
Upon
one-time fee.
completion.
I mean, all right. Okay. This is a one-time fee. Fee per permit, I would say, because there could be a new permit, and they could have to have a new mitigation. How about that?
One-time fee per permit?
Right.
Sure.
Per conservation permit, because our conservation permit runs from de minimis activity to RDA to NOI to ANRAD. So this way we would have that flexibility.
I thought we had loss of resource in there as well, Bill. Shellfish and loss of resource.
Okay,
But that was on the previous version.
okay. Dial me in. Shellfish. Where am I putting the loss of resource area? I thought we,
Shellfish and resource, this should be loss of resource.
oh, loss.
Of resource. I'd kill the capital R, just make it a small r.
Well, there deliberately.
All right?
What do you think, Bill?
Commissioners good with that?
Yep.
Susan? Public? Bill Finn, you okay?
I was just looking, we're gonna put a space between 80 and shellfish.
Space, okay. 8-inch shellfish, perfect. Okay.
Good catch.
I want to make this 2 like that. These are things that,
2B, need a space too.
where's that? Right here?
No.
No, over. Seasonal funds are to be.
Funds are
Ah.
2B.
Look at that.
To be or not to be.
Okay.
Okay? I make a motion that we accept the changes we've just created for Performance Standard E28. Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Craig. Roll call vote. Art?
Art Lagi, yes.
Craig?
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert?
Earl O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Sorry, Susan Karen, yes.
And Rick Carberry, yes?
500.
So that's a
okay.
500.
Okay. All right, down at 29. Okay. All right. So some new language added in. Mike's got, his bylaw was put into effect in 2015, and in 2019, he coordinated with the Conservation Commission so that any fees for barges and other marine equipment could be assessed through special conditions associated with orders of conditions or determination of applicability. So that gave him a little bit better avenue to collect on those fees, just like now we can deal with the floats on the marsh, because now we have something concrete to work with. And he wanted to put that in there, and it makes sense.
Yep.
So we worked hard on this, pretty much what he said.
So this just means if a barge shows up to knock piles in, and it stays there, and it's a 100-foot barge, and it stays there for X number of days, Mike has a fee structure that the Concom can put in the orders of conditions to charge the project owner those expenses for that equipment to be used for that particular construction project.
It's not just the fee, it's also the coordinate. So if you have a barge coming to Green Harbor, which is a commercial port, some boats may have to be shuffled around to get to a private dock. So I need time to like find another berthing spot for them as well, but also facilitate the dock project, so. And then also, if you read up on the bylaw, it also talks about like safety plan and things like that, storm plan, so if a hurricane does come and the barge is there, you gotta have a plan for all that stuff. If a guy gets hurt on the barge, or if a neighbor calls the river, say, hey, my neighbor's putting an illegal dock in, well, he's not, you already checked in 2 weeks prior, here's what he's doing, here's the permit, so everybody knows what's going on, kinda like checks and balances.
Yeah.
But the fee structure is important too, it kinda forces the private contractor to come and get the job done and move on.
Okay. Commissioners, questions?
Sounds good.
All good, commissioners? Okay. Comments from the public? Joe?
So that last line says special conditions was ratified. Shouldn't that be special conditions as ratified?
Okay,
Or were ratified?
okay, so
As
what did I
ratified.
use up here? Okay, so I put, the first one was ratified during, and wordsmithers have at it here.
Voted.
Well, it was approved, is what it was. We use ratified, but it was approved at town meeting. Approved,
That ratified word,
yeah, we use it a lot. It means the same thing, approved and ratified by a vote. You can approve it because everybody's like, yep, that's the way to go, or you can have a vote, and ratification is the vote approval. So I'll just say that, approved during annual town meeting. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Joe, another catalyst. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, then I make a motion that for performance standard E29, as amended, that we accept the amendment language. Do I have a second?
Second.
Art?
Roll call vote. Art?
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan? Susan?
Susan, demute.
You're muted.
Sorry. Susan Karen, yes.
Thank you, Susan. And Rick Carber, yes, so that carries 5-0.
500, right. Okay, number 30, no changes. 31's introduced. Okay, right there.
31 is brand new. This is the last item. And it says, no docks or structures are allowed in the Cut River, which is a historical waterway.
I have a question about that.
Okay?
The question is the justification for no docks or structures in the Cut River because it's because it's a historical waterway? You can't, you could use the same justification for, why would you use the same justification for no docks or structures allowed in the North River, which is also a historical water? So I think you just take off, which is a historical waterway.
So, before we do that, is it?
And the question is, why is that in there?
So, just for the kind of, not to debate or argue here, so we know the North River is a scenic river, but is it also historical?
Yes, it is. Very
Okay, that
historical.
takes care of that. So then you have two things there. Cut River, just go to Cut River. That's what we had before, but before we were wordsmithing it, upgrading it, the justification. You just don't want anything in there in the Cut River. That's what,
Well, and then just say
Well,
that.
question,
that's
sorry,
kind of,
Bill, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, if you don't want docks or structures in the Cut River, say, I don't want any docks or structures in the Cut River, period.
yeah, we were there before, yeah.
Where we were, yeah.
We added this
Well-
because we thought it helped, but
Basically, based on the performance standards and DEP and DMF, there's no dock, there's no water in the Cut River to even
Right.
have 2.5 substrate, it's all.
That's the
tile.
point I wanted to make. I think the changes we already made
Yeah.
eliminate the possibility of that anyway, right?
well,
But it doesn't eliminate somebody to have a catwalk out to a certain point. So if they did that, you would essentially choke off a good portion of the whole Cut River, which is it navigable? Yes, no, but it is used by kayakers and bridge jumping, of course, but you would choke a lot of it off. And it is historical.
So any of that would reduce the navigation ability.
So,
let's just,
It's simple.
No docks or structures are allowed in the Cut River.
period.
so
That's
it.
That's right.
that's a little problematic. I've had a conversation with a guy at like 150.
I don't care.
yeah, well, we wanted to call it out, Mike wanted to call
I
it
think
out.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too.
So we have a dock coming up that's been spoken to me about, and it's not a dock, he just wants to, if they're gonna go out like 14 feet so that they can get access and drop a ladder down, and the kids get on the mud flats at 150. I mentioned that when Joe Ring and I went to that one about 3 weeks ago. So would that kill this right here? Would that structure be done?
I think 14 feet's a showstopper. I mean, I don't, you know.
Well, what I'm trying to kind of, I have to make a phone call tomorrow. I mean, I don't disagree. I've seen broader, no docks or structures. But,
Is your idea not to allow, you don't want docks, piers, floats, etc. So why don't you just say no docks, which covers both piers, floats, and everything else. Just say no docks in the Cut River. And eliminate the structures, that solves the problem.
well, the language is Article 4, in project specific piers. Piers, some people think of it as the pier, the gangway, and the float. I call it a dock system to keep it clean. I don't think it's a perfect language. So are we saying we don't want even like swimming areas out there so that they can get access to the deeper water? Because it drops off a bunch. It drops off like 4 or 5 feet, and they want to get down in there. The kids want to play and stuff, There aren't a whole lot of opportunities. They're all on Bay Avenue
I think it's
for the
good.
most part.
No structures.
I don't know, all I'm saying is that to use if you don't want docks in the Cut River, say no docks in the Cut River. But don't
Well,
add the historical part.
I took it out, but the thing is, no docks or structures. Take out or structures, and then
Not all structures, and that kind of solves your problem.
now it's docks, okay?
And docks is a defined term.
But I think Mike's got a good point. He's worried about navigation in there, so I want to.
Well, what else?
What's wrong with
But
this
again,
stuff?
if he's,
But you can have a pier to nowhere, you can have a pier come up
Exactly.
60 feet, and it's doing the same thing as a dock would, of restricting access into the Cut River.
What's wrong with no docks or structures allowed in
That's
the
right,
Cut River?
I agree. What's wrong with structures?
You guys don't want to have. We're going to have to talk to somebody because we just disallowed them. Here, I'm just letting you know. It's at least one that's going right now. But it doesn't matter. I mean, we would have had the same thing on the other side of the Beach Street Bridge. I mean, we have one associated with that house at 225. Other than that,
That's
somebody else.
already permitted though, right?
Correct.
Well, I don't think we can sort of reverse engineer based on the fact that you happen to have somebody coming in.
Well, we, the commission, have it because I just work for you.
I think it's right, no docks or structures are allowed in the
I
Cut River.
agree.
Okay, I put it back just so I wanted to, just want to let you know, okay?
Commissioners,
I'm good.
public? Joe?
So what happens if there are docks or structures there now? Are we grandfathered or?
Your grandfather in, yeah.
Okay, so
Unfortunately.
Well, if they're permitted invalid, and that is a complicated animal, that's a lot, I could, trust me, that's part of the reason I've had plenty of calls about floats and this and that, but there's amnesty, permits from the DEP, all kinds of stages, and somebody could write a book on it. So, it's tricky, but now we're getting better at being able to manage.
So it'd be like ZBA rules regarding non-conforming structures, if they grandfathered, they stay?
So,
If it was legal at the time it was built, it remains allowed.
Okay, so you don't have to say like no new docks.
No, you don't have to say that.
Right, I get it.
So, and it's also, some of these permits, Bert's right about, some did expire. They have 30-year windows, but some were for eternity.
Really? Okay.
So, and that's a very complex thing. And we're just wading into that now. So keeping it less prescriptive, not prescriptive is probably your best bet.
Okay, so I make a motion that we accept the new language in Performance Standard E31. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Second.
Second from Mark.
Okay,
Roll call vote.
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan?
Susan Karen, yes.
Rick Carver, yes. So that's in place 5-0. Congratulations to everybody that participated. Thank you, Bill Finn. Thank you, committee. Thank you, townspeople. Thank you, Paul Armstrong. Thank you, our harbor master. We now have the best set of regs in the state of Massachusetts.
Not only that.
Wait, we have two more motions
Hey,
here,
Joe,
Oh, my
guys.
gosh.
Joe,
Yep.
got a spot for you right here.
First off,
Joe, well done today. Yeah, something.
505-401.1, applicability to applications and requests. These rules and regulations were first promulgated on May 15th, 1990. They have been subsequently amended on December 18th, 1990, December 17th, 1991, June 19th, 2002, October 2nd, 2002, September 17th, 2003, December 1st, 2004, May 1st, 2008, October 16th, 2018, and October 30th, 2018, March 18th, 2021, and March 7th, 2022, and shall apply as amended to all applications and requests filed after that date.
Well, wait a minute, there's pending, something happened here, pending, filed, pending and filed, okay?
Today's date?
It pending and filed, so something happened with that.
Where does
Okay.
pending and filed
Well, we
go?
need it in there because we did it in the last motion. I'm sorry about that. It says pending and filed was what we, the last time we got together, it was pending and filed. We made the motion. Bob Galvin was here. I know this isn't right in front of you. I copied and pasted something. And so that's the March 7th. It said pending and filed.
We also don't have.
So it's
April
actually-
14th there, do we?
It's actually in, I don't have this, I don't have, okay. I don't have the regulation.
Thanks, Mike. Good night.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you very, very much.
April 14th will come in the motion,
Right.
Okay.
but,
It's pending and filed.
and that is inserted where?
It says, where it says after that date, it says any and all requests pending and after.
Okay.
File
any-
pending and after that
All
date.
applications and requests pending and filed?
Yep. Filed pending and after that date.
So-
Filed,
The application's in process right now. We're changing the rules for them?
no, you're not, you're not. What I've done is I copied and pasted from the last motion. I didn't clean that up. I didn't expect it to be
Everything
fully
from this
read.
date forward.
All I was hoping to do is have the motion that we're going to add, that I specifically put for you. So basically, the last time we were here, the 401.1 was addressed. Bob Galvin said pending and filed. Okay, that is in the regulations. So I copied and pasted prior to that language being changed at March 7th, okay? So the motion's fine. The reading of the piece is my fault because I copied and pasted the wrong thing.
Okay, so October 30th, 2018, March 18th, 2021, March 7th, 2022, and shall apply as amended to all applications and requests pending and filed after that date.
Yeah.
I move that we vote to approve the revisions discussed and edited during the April 14th, 2022 Marshfield Conservation Commission public meeting, including Chapter 505, 401.1. May I have a second?
Second.
All in, roll call.
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes?
Rick Carver, yes.
Bert O'Donnell, yes?
Susan Karen, yes.
Okay. And
Craig Hannafin, right? You did
I did, I said
Gotcha.
yes, yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to be a jerk.
Final motion, I vote to direct the Conservation Administrator to make the revisions discussed and edited during the April 14th, 2022 Marshfield Conservation Commission public meeting, post and make available. Do I have a second?
Second.
Art,
Roll call.
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hannafin, yes.
Rick Carver, yes.
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan Karen, yes.
And finally, I move to close the meeting of the Marshfield, Town of
you
Marshfield
didn't get
Conservation.
yourself, did you get yourself on that last
I
one?
did.
Okay, got it. All right.
I move that we vote to close the Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, April 14th, May I have a second?
Second.
Roll
Rick.
call.
Art Loggy, yes.
Craig Hanafin, yes?
Greg Carberry, yes?
Bert O'Donnell, yes.
Susan Karen, yes.
We are adjourned.
You got you, Craig, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it, 5:00. Okay, good.
Thanks.